Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about the ghosts of fantasy suites past.
It's overnights week for Grant, and Bachelor production has decided to introduce some mentors for the ladies.
You gotta gird your loins and gird your minds. Girls, don't let fantasy suites break you psychologically, no matter what choices the Bachelor makes.
We're joined today by bestie of the pod and Emmy award-winning Last Week Tonight writer and Vulture recapper, Allie Barthwell. Allie, we have missed you so much. Welcome back. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so glad to be back on the pod and in the beautiful Dominican Republic where dreams come true.
I know. I am staring outside and it is just like raining and extremely foggy and gray. And frankly, I do wish I was in the Dominican Republic right now.
Mentally, we're there. Mentally, we're in the Dominican Republic where Grant has so much rich history, which is also so important to me.
Brand new information that he was part Dominican. His grandma lived there. We knew he played basketball there, but I was like, this is a lot of new information in the fantasy suite episode.
This is what happens when the season is 2 weeks shorter. We're just learning basic details about our lead.
Isn't it beautiful that after all these 5 or 6 weeks together, he can still surprise us? I think that's just lovely. Before we dive in, a little quick housekeeping. We just wrapped up our Love is Blind coverage here. So if you missed those episodes, look back in the feed. We've got all our Love is Blind coverage for you. And of course, over at our Substack, Rich Text, we just covered the Meghan Markle show with Love Meghan and the discourse around the Meghan Markle show with Love Meghan.
Nothing but discourse. There was a lot to say about what everyone else is saying. And you can find that at clarentemma.substack.com.
So mentally, let's go back to the Dominican Republic.
Thank you. I feel warmer already. Yes.
It seems like this season they have just like outsourced their intro packages to the tourism board of whatever nation. They're just like, roll the tourism board video.
To the editing team of the Fast and Furious.
The fun cuts. And
it looked like in the Fast and Furious wherever they're like, Havana, Cuba. And then it's just like...
Wait, that's so real.
And like palm trees.
You're just like, we're just missing the muscle cars.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's like babes in bikinis. Dominic Toretto is here. Honestly, could have used him.
Definitely could have used him. I think that they're trying to do a lot of innovation this season, specifically just around the editing and making it feel more cinematic and less like The Bachelor from 20 years ago. I don't know if it's enough to save the franchise.
Yeah, they want to modernize it, and this is not the editing wasn't the problem.
Yeah. You got to make some more fundamental shifts, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have made some fundamental shifts towards being a lot more boring, but that's what we're going to get into today. So as we discussed, Grant loves the Dominican Republic. We learn about his history with the Dominican Republic. And this week, he's really hoping that he can get clarity on who his wife will be. He doesn't know. Who is she? He's got to get some clarity.
He's like, I've had 1 to 2 dates with each of these women. It's crazy that I don't know who I'm going to marry.
And then we get this footage through like a saturated color filter. I feel like they switched to another film genre here of Grant playing 2-on-2 basketball with Jesse Palmer, his perennial teammate and opponent. And I love that they clearly set this up to make Grant and Jesse look cool. Grant does a little give and go layup for Jesse, and the other guy on the other team just stands there while Jesse takes an easy layup over him.
They're like, no need to defend.
I remember during the Obama era, it like came out that he traveled with a guy that just played basketball with him. Like he had a guy that was just playing one-on-one basketball with him. And I was like, maybe Grant could have benefited if he just had like a travel team that went with him everywhere of like college students that he played against. It's like, he seemed relaxed. He seemed happy. Like,
he really did. Jesse seemed relaxed and happy too. Jesse's in his happy place. He's like, I love this season. I get to play a game with Grant every episode.
And he's been, now that they're doing 2-on-2 with these nameless locals, he gets to be on like the Harlem Globetrotters against this sort of random Washington Generals team. So after they do their dynamic duo thing on the court, Grant and Jesse sit down to talk, and Grant tells Jesse this week is so important Not because of the physical aspect of fantasy suites, but because he still barely knows these women and he kind of needs to talk to them before he chooses a wife.
He's still at the like, I kind of like you stage with at least one of these women.
Oh,
Like,
I
this
mean,
is-
Zoe, we get to her date and she's like, wait, I don't know a single fact about you. Tell me about your childhood.
And they're having a conversation that's sort of like maybe a first round interview, or maybe he's like her mentor and he's like, I see a lot of potential in you. There's a lot of good here. If we keep meeting, I think you can really advance your career with my guidance. Like, that is how much they like each other.
And I think also this is we're gonna say it 1,000 different times during this episode, but Grant clearly has an idea of like what a wife should be.
Oh,
And
yes.
maybe not necessarily who a wife should be.
He
So the
knows
way-
what a wife and mother
And it's
should
like he
be.
has a checklist. She is fun. She's adventurous, but she also can be serious and also needs to be saved and knows what family is. Like, it's a 5-point plan. And so just like throughout the episode, he's just sort of like, well, this person has 3 of the 5 and this person has 4 of the 5. This person has 2 of the 5. And it's just really like, we'll get to it as it goes on, because there were times where I was genuinely like, oh no, this is bad. But it also is very like objectifying that like a wife is a certain type of thing rather than a certain type of person. And he really is in his looking for a wife era.
But he's also like, I think, uncomfortable with learning that they lack one of the qualities. So when he goes on a date to test one of their qualities and they don't show that quality, he's just like, well, we did the date where that quality is part of it. So she showed that she's that kind of person. Moving on. He doesn't know what he's doing. And they really, again, just haven't given him enough time to, I think, maybe move past that impulse to go by the checklist and get to know them in a more like natural human to human.
Every moment feels so freighted because he knows what's coming way sooner than it should be. So he's like, okay, got to go back to the checklist because I need to find a wife. Like the goal here is find a wife. Therefore, one of these 3 is the wife. Who's the most wife of the wives?
It's like a shell game. Like his wife is hiding under one of these hot women, but they keep moving the shells around. Like, where is she? So Juliana has the first fantasy suite in this unbearably boring week. She's at Zoe Agua. I think they're all at different resorts. And she is stressed out about this week because it brings up a lot of emotions about her past experiences, which, as we all know, means that she's been cheated on before. And therefore, this feels like being cheated on. And it's very triggering. This is not a fun week for people with infidelity experience.
No, and they don't really wring any like drama out of the fact that like she feels this way. Litia clearly feels a certain way about him being intimate, but nobody really like makes any drama of it or digs any deeper than just mentioning it. And it's like, I hate the thing of like, if you're intimate with anyone else, we can't go. And it's like, that would have been interesting to watch in this episode. Like, I would have.
I know. I was having the same reaction where I was like, I don't want these women to be traumatized. And I have tired of that plot line. And yet, couldn't we figure out a way to have something interesting happen?
It's like for a while they had the dial in this kind of comfortable place for the show where there would be enough emotional pain to cause a dramatic storyline. But everyone will be sort of fine by after the final rose. And then they were like, what if we turn the trauma dial up to 17? And everyone was not okay. And then they were like, okay, we got to turn the dial all the way back down to 1. And there's just nothing. They go out of their way to kind of prevent there being any unnecessary angst from any of these women. And the result is that nothing happens.
Yeah. My suspicion is they saw how successful Joey's season was and how much people liked him and how respectful he was of everybody. And they were like, oh, we just have to do that, and didn't realize that it was Joey doing it and not the show. So even when, they talk to the women from Joey's season, it's like they were in a completely different situation because their bachelor was
Joey.
much more invested and emotionally like, aware
Giving.
of himself. And I think, and again, we'll get to it. I think Grant is just not very emotionally aware of himself in the same way.
Joey was unusually emotionally
Yes,
intelligent for a man in his 20s.
And I'm going to say it again. He had a full length season, which Grant doesn't
Also
have.
that.
Like these women
No, they've
are not that
handicapped.
invested.
They've handicapped Grant.
No woman has gone home yet who was particularly invested in ending up with Grant. And so there isn't even the drama of like, you did everything right, Joey, but I'm so heartbroken because I really thought that we could be together. They're just like, okay, well, thank you for your time.
Going to get that until the finale.
We're not going to get it until the finale.
No.
So Daisy is here to mentor Juliana, and Juliana giggles in her throaty way and like waggles her head around in her Juliana way and tells Daisy that she and Grant have expressed that they're falling in love with each other, and Daisy is so thrilled for her. But Juliana reveals to Daisy that in her last relationship, which was about 7 years long, she was cheated on basically constantly. She says he had a bunch of chicks on the side. And she's worried that these memories will flood in and break her down. And then she's like, and then I have this bubbly demeanor that is like how I guard against being broken down. And Daisy says she relates to her in this way. I don't really remember this being a big part of Daisy's storyline.
No, I don't think so.
But Daisy encourages her to choose to open up and not to fear being hurt, just like Daisy did. Because of that, she has no regrets. And I'm like, well, you weren't that into Joey in the end. You decided to go home. So yeah.
You were there hoping to get a Bachelorette edit and then didn't. And you seem fine.
Yeah, so close.
I mean,
well,
she's
with
fine
a billionaire
she's
now.
with Thor, a billionaire, and they have just built a massive mansion in Vegas.
That's really how you win The Bachelor now, is like you are just the most virtuous, wonderful contestant who then gets to marry a billionaire. Juliana puts on some cutoffs and meets Grant to go four-wheeling. He's like, I'm ready to get her dirty. They put on their helmets and goggles and they shout, Wolfpack, baby, because they have like a team name. And Grant takes them on a spin.
I can't with the Wolfpack thing.
I know.
It's just like,
man, I hate it.
Because, I was not here hometowns, but when he was showing her mother his tattoo, I was like, oh Lord, like this is not, you don't want your boyfriend sitting down with your mom being like, so yeah, like the wolf represents like I'm a loner, like a lone wolf. And then like it's got trees because it's like you can't see the forest for the trees. So I put trees there. Like you don't want that. But he clearly has latched onto this as their thing. And it's
has she.
And so has she.
Yeah, they're mutually into it.
I mean, this is like the Love is Blind thing, where they're in the pods and they're like, your grandma's name is Sarah. My grandma's name is Sarah. It's fate. They're like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. We're falling in love.
You've seen Moulin Rouge and or Sound of Music?
Yeah.
I've seen Moulin Rouge and or Sound of Music.
They both identify as wolves. And I think that might be the thing that puts her over the top, because I'm feeling good about Juliana.
That and the lack of like culty religious affiliation.
Yeah. And this is adventure date, fun date, spontaneous date.
And he knows that a wife is fun and adventurous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he wants to know if she still looks hot when her hair is messed up. And so he makes sure to take her through every puddle. She's like, haha, next time I'm going to drive. But she knows that he needs to know what she looks like when she's not that hot. She's like, the test will be if you still like what you see when the ride is over. And they stop and she takes off her goggles and helmet. And her bangs are sort of frizzy, or her like face framing bits. And you can tell she is really upset about it.
Oh, she's panicked.
That felt like it was her being like, I have been, if you're with someone that is cheating on you constantly, your beauty and everything gets tied up in that really fast. And like, also what he's telling you, what he's telling other people. So I really imagine that. And the fact that she was like, oh, I have to look bubbly and put together all the time. I was like, oh, baby girl, it is okay.
That did feel like a real moment of like true anxiety. And also add that the fact that she's very aware she's on camera. And so she's probably thinking about like, will Grant like me? And also, am I going to look a mess on national television? You felt it all.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't have that like confidence of like, oh, I look so hot that even my hair being messy only sets off how hot I am. Like, oh gosh, I'm such a mess. She's like genuinely shaken. Like people are gonna see me looking a mess.
Or like the sense of humor to be like, oh, hey, do you like me? But, if she had like mud on under her eye, to smear mud on her eyes and be like, ooh, I'm so, like she doesn't have that sense of humor either. And it really, she feels the most like she's the one being like, I think I got this if I just white knuckle to the end. I think I got this. And so every interaction that she has, it feels like she's just like white knuckling it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Grant can tell that she is freaking out. He's like, you still look beautiful. Don't worry about it. And they get out and sit on a bench for champagne. They just like four-wheeled through the wilderness to a bench, as you always do on this show.
Where is a wooden-sided hot tub in the forest when you needed it?
We have not gotten enough hot tubs.
Are we at hot? Are we at
zero?
hot tub 0? I think we're at hot tub 0 for this season.
Yeah, that is. I mean,
because what she had on, it looked a bit like a bathing suit, and so I was like, oh, they're gonna hot tub. They're gonna
just another bench.
Be at the beach, and it's like, I guess just women's activewear looks like a sports bra or looks like shapewear these days. And I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna strip off them cutoffs and get in a hot tub or go in the ocean. Nope, not at all.
Just sitting on a bench, dirty and hot. And Grant is like, I always have fun with you. And she says, me too, boyfriend. The boyfriend thing also feels a little bit like she's like summoning it into existence.
Yeah.
This is my boyfriend. And he tells her that she's special because she's fun and also serious.
Lord.
He also tells her about how close he was with his grandma, who is from the Dominican Republic, and how she used to cook for him after school. And he would get so excited to go home and eat her delicious food. And Juliana's like, aw. And then she tells him that it's been a big challenge for her to let someone in. And she sees a lot of characteristics in him that she'd want in a man, but he's also figuring it out with other women. And that's hard. I think we're also seeing a lot of the checklist dating from the women who are like, Grant is emotionally like sensitive and he listens and he has a job and he is tall. What else am I supposed to want in a man? Like, this is it.
Yeah, everyone is saying the vaguest, most non-specific things possible so that you don't really feel like passionate or there's not a lot of sexual tension on these fantasy suite dates. To also say like we're at hot tub 0, I think we can also say that for like the sexual tension. Like we could have used an outdoor shower, like even if we're not going to let them get in hot, but it's just none of the dates sort of have any sexual tension. And so it all feels very like vague. And I think, part of it I do think is the women sort of having a checklist and wanting to give Grant that checklist. And Grant ends like every other confessional with being like, love is safety and security. And that's what love is. And it's like, love is.
They're all so in their own heads that also connects to the checklist of it all, that no one's just like letting go, feeling the vibes, fully putting themselves into it.
They're
so
all auditioning.
Aware. Yes,
they're all auditioning at all times.
For the role of wife and mother.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Juliana's evening date.
Can you keep up? I love it.
And we are back, and it's time for the night portion of Juliana's date. They walk through a windstorm to get to a romantic outdoor setup in a palapa. We know how much this franchise loves a palapa.
A lot of this episode is in palapas. And
are they just trying to remind us, like, paradise is coming?
Paradise is that is the effect it had on me. I was like, ooh, a palapa. And as they sit in the high wind sort of environment that they're in, he toasts to the day and to how spending time with her gets better each time. And Juliana very suggestively is in white. She's in like a white two-piece
Mhm.
outfit.
She's manifesting.
She's manifesting.
It's white, it's bridal, but it's also titty forward. And I respect that.
As most of her outfits are. And if I had her incredible breasts, I too would be styling myself
I actually
that
think
way.
a lot of the outfits across the board have been titty forward.
Yeah.
This like I felt like a lot of presentation of
You
the
know,
girls
I
was
love that
happening.
for them.
Me too.
I love that for us. I love that for Grant. Everyone's winning here.
Everyone's getting what they want. honestly.
Exactly.
Except for me, because mine will never be like that. She
Claire's
tells him
just
that
getting titty envy.
I am. Yeah, it's fine. We don't all get to have everything. She tells him that she struggles with opening up because she tends to laugh when she wants to scream, but it's important for him to see all the sides of her. Unfortunately, she does not scream during this date, but she is ready to open up about being cheated on and let all those feelings in. So she tells him that in her last relationship, he cheated on her many times. It seems like hard for her to talk about this, and that sort of manifests in a little bit of word salad. She's like, he cheated on me many times, someone that I gave an arm and a leg to, and more chances than I should have. And I was like, who are you? Did he cheat on you with your best
That's
friend?
what I
No, she's
thought
still
at some
talking
point.
about
I think
him.
she's still talking about him. Like,
That she gave him a lot of chances. And she also goes, and that's what I thought love was, is giving him multiple chances. Yeah.
And then she says that it damaged her and broke her to the point that she had to walk away. And I'm like, no, that's good. It's
Yeah.
good that you broke up with him. That's not
Yeah.
you being damaged and broken. And she says it's such a challenge to go from feeling so minimized in someone's life. It screwed me up so bad. I'm a little broken and I'm still working to fix myself. And she's in like floods of tears at this point. Of course, this was a misdirect. In the teaser, they made it look like he was going to be like, are you ready to get engaged? And she was going to be like, I'm too broken. But that's not the conversation at all. She says that she's like still pushing herself every day to get there with him, even though it's so scary and hard. Like he's right in front of her and it's scary that it might not be her that he chooses. And she says, you're showing up for me in ways that I've missed out on for a long time.
This would have been a great moment to either have either one of them say specifically how they show up for each other or could show up for each other, or B, I would have loved to hear about Grant's relationship past. That's something like we haven't really heard about other than this long on again, off again. And it's also like, if you're with someone who has been cheated on and that's like a big fear, you should say like what being, monogamous means to you, or have you ever been cheated on, or have you cheated and you've learned your lesson? Like, but he's the thing. I hate, it's going to sound like I don't like him. I think he's a very sweet guy, but it's just like the thing that he's sort of not very good at is like offering specifics to show like active listening in the moment and be like, if it just was like that happened to me, or my mom went through that, or I see, I know that women go through this, so that's why in my relationships I never blah blah blah. And it just really sort of feels like these women are like opening up, and he's just sort of like, I understand that 100%, and that's what love is not, and I want to show you what love is.
I mean,
And,
we
like-
really see this pattern also in his breakups, where he like doesn't know how to say something specific about the relationship to the woman
Right.
that is exiting. And he's certainly not the first Bachelor to struggle with this, but I think we were very spoiled with Joey. And so
very
it's
expressive,
rough
yeah.
to come back.
And it's also
Yeah.
like, if you're in the fantasy suites, it's like you should want to comfort this person
You also should
beyond-
know them well enough to be able to have that exchange.
and like want to comfort them beyond like when your hair was messy and you were self-conscious, you still were beautiful. And that's when I knew you were beautiful. It's like, that doesn't help me if I'm saying like I've been cheated on multiple times in my past.
What if your tears are wiped away with the strong and gentle thumbs of a handsome, tall former basketball player?
Yeah,
Doesn't that comfort you?
he can do both eyes at the same time with his giant hands.
Yeah. It's so easy for him. Like
Yeah.
he can just do it. I mean, I think that it is also interesting that they keep saying stuff like, you're showing up for me in all these ways. And it's like, they really barely know him. And
You're
it's
like, what
unclear how
ways?
Yeah.
they just feel good when they're around him because he's nice. And that's being kind of spun into this like marriage worthy level virtue.
I also just think a lot of these women are pretty young and literally have not experienced dating someone who's nice.
Well, I mean, Juliana isn't even that young. She's just was in a relationship.
She was in a relationship
her
for
whole
7
20s
years
that
with
was
an
really
asshole.
toxic.
So
Yeah.
I can't imagine it just feeling really nice to be with someone who's
Right. And if she's been single for a year, it's like maybe she started that relationship when she was like 19 and had a year or two of being single or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's your whole
right. That's your
adult
whole experience. That's your
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
experience.
So Grant offers this. He's like, you're special to me. You don't have to come to me 100% fixed up. Everyone is broken, including me. That's what love is for. It fixes you.
Guys.
It's like,
Guys,
does
this is-
it?
The biggest this narrative that Grant and this is the biggest red flag. And it like, oh boy.
Yeah, y'all,
Oh,
love does
boy.
not fix you.
No.
That
no.
is not how it works.
If anything, shit gets worse when you get with somebody else.
Yeah,
'cause they're-
in a big way, love exposes you, actually.
Yeah. I remember being 18 and getting my first boyfriend and being like, this is going to fix all of my insecurities. Like, I'm someone with a boyfriend now. And that relationship was a disaster because I expected it to fix me. And he was like, I am an 18-year-old boy and I have my own shit going on. He's like 31, Grant. Like, you gotta learn at some point that love is not going to fix everyone.
it comes up again. I noted it a couple other times, but it really is sort of this. He believes that like, okay, this is like, as a person whose family has worked in the addiction medicine field, who's like had to read about addiction, like, seen it happen with family members and friends and all kinds of things. It's like, this is a very, very, I was like, someone needs to get this man the Adult Children of Alcoholics book and like a lot of these roles and the way that he kind of talks about like, I can fix it, we can fix it, love will fix this. And he's done something also where he's like idealized the father role.
Yeah.
And he's idealized his father when it seems like his father had his struggles, but also caused a lot of that strife that was going on in the family. Like if you're suffering with addiction, like there are problems that just emanate from doing that. And so a lot of this thinking, it seems very immature. It feels very much like someone who believed if X person or Y person just loved each other, loved me, loved the family more, something different could have happened, would have happened, should have happened. It's magical thinking, but the way that it is so tied to love and family and relationships and marriage and parenthood. When he had this background of a parent going through addiction, I was like, buddy, I got a bunch of books that I can send you. Like,
that's a really good
things.
observation. I think you're so right. Like, so much of this is him seeing or like even putting it on his shoulders that like, I need to be the perfect ideal father and I need to find the woman who will be the perfect ideal wife so that I can create a family structure that is fixed in all the ways that mine was broken. And the reality is that like, yes, you can make different choices than your parents did, but you're still going to bring your own shit into your own family structure and your own relationship. Like none of us are perfect. All of us are going to have to like continuously do work on ourselves throughout our entire lives.
And you have to identify where, maybe he's done this work. It would be really nice to hear this. But like, you have to identify like where things went wrong or the values and the things that your parents did or your grandparents did that you don't want to do. And it doesn't, again, it's all vague. It's all very nonspecific.
Or the one specific we've really heard is like, my family's going to have dinner together. That is
Yeah.
like really
Yeah.
the one specific that we've heard like 10 times.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if he's ever had dinner at a WASP household, but you can have dinner and not speak to each other. Like you can have dinner and shit can be going wrong too. Like, come on, buddy.
So true.
He tells her that he looks at her and thinks, "What? How? Dude, who messed up? Where someone else messed up, that's where I see treasure." Like,
Oh, boy.
he's just like, I can't even convey in full sentences my disbelief that someone would have fumbled you. And he's like, she just wants someone who will love Juliana for who she is. And I can do that. And so, perfect. Like, what else do we have to worry about? He teases her about how her hair was kind of messed up by the helmet and she was worried about it. And he knew how beautiful she was. And she doesn't even know, which he thinks is like so great. Cue One Direction.
I'm rolling my eyes
Yeah.
for the listeners.
Men
She
men
doesn't
love
know
this
she's
shit.
beautiful.
She doesn't know. She's so
her
hot. she doesn't
insecurities are
even
what
know.
makes her beautiful.
Yeah.
He then gives her a Polaroid of them arriving at her family gathering with pizza and flowers, which is a cute picture.
Cute. The way he describes it, he's like, you see the pizza boxes? That was that day.
Like
They've
she
hung out like
she
3
knows
times.
Grant.
Like, I don't think she's at risk of forgetting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think she's gonna confuse it with another day.
Another
No,
day when
it
they
was-
were.
He just was like, there's pizza boxes.
I think
was
you know what
there.
that means. You were there. I was there. The pizza was there. Multiple pizzas were there.
And he's like, you were so in your element. You are so happy. I just love the way that you carry yourself. Even after heartbreak, I want to be there for you. And then he tells her that he's falling in love with her, but he says it in a way like he
It's new
hasn't said it
information.
before.
I had a moment where I was like, has he not said this? I was
He
like, I feel
has.
like he said
He has.
this.
At the beginning of the episode, Juliana's like, he told me he was falling in love with me.
Right.
And I feel like it would kind of take away from the specialness of that if it seemed clear that he had forgotten that he did that. He's like, guess what? I am falling in love with you. And they make out, and Juliana puts her long fingers on his face, as she loves to do. And Grant produces the fantasy suite card. And she's like, well, I say it's a no-brainer. So they head to the fantasy suite. They whisper to each other a lot and make out. And he's just so happy. He loves the way they look at each other, talk about each other, kiss each other. The feelings and emotions are all there.
All the emotions,
This
all
is what
of
love
them,
is.
they're there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who needs to think about what those things are? They're there.
They're there. They're around us. He draws the curtains over the suite doors, and we hear Juliana say, spicy. And I'm 100% certain that they were sampling the charcuterie board,
Yeah.
Yes.
but they want us to think that it's something sexual. The next morning, Juliana's heels are on the floor, and they're snuggled in bed together. She's like, was I a good sleeper? And he says, yes. And she's like, 12 out of 10 experience, would do it again. I think I'm going to keep you. And Grant laughs in a sort of freaked out way and is like, you're going to keep me? I'm a keeper? You're a keeper too.
I think I'm going to keep you is another white woman catchphrase along the lines of you're going to be trouble, which is just like, we really hit it off. But it's something you say on like a 6th date. And I was like, oh boy, we're supposed to be getting engaged.
I know.
It's quite a thing to say when like it's not really your decision.
Yes. I think that's with the hello boyfriend. I think she's trying to like force
She's-
some control
yeah,
on it.
She
Yeah.
is like making it clear to him that she sees this herself as endgame.
Yeah.
for him.
I read this morning as he gave her some reassurance. You're going to be one of the final 2. Like just the way they were behaving with each other.
She was she felt secure.
She felt really relaxed and there was sort of and when she was like, bye, she was just like, that's my bye boyfriend. Like she was so calm. I think I think he said some version of like, you're in the top 2.
I mean, he could definitely say that with a lot of confidence because
I
it is
think
very clear.
Everyone in America could say that.
Right.
Exactly.
She was moving in a different way. She came even in the rose ceremony. She came in like, "Hey, ladies! Oh, you look
Congrats,
great!
congrats, beautiful. Yeah, no, she seemed very secure.
Yeah. And Grant seems like a little freaked out that he's almost being cornered into saying he's going to keep her also. And so he has to make that pivot to like, you're a keeper for someone, I'm sure. But they both seem like they're in a good mood. And she says in Her in the Moment that she feels like they've woken up together a million times. They have breakfast outside. She's like, I feel so good. I got a lot of questions answered. And then she says, I'm going to hold on to last night for a while until I see you again. So in like 3 days.
Yeah.
And Grant says it meant a lot to him that she opened up, and she says, you make it easier to get there. And he says, you make it easy to listen. And she says, good, because I yap.
This girl is on TikTok.
She's a yapper.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do like a couple where the woman is like, I talk a lot. And the guy's like, I'm here to listen. Like that.
We do
That's
support
true.
that. We support a
make it.
woman talking and a man listening. Always.
They will make it.
I will say this about Grant. He doesn't seem like he feels the need to talk that much. The part
He's
because
not a
maybe he
yapper.
doesn't have that much usually to say, except for I'm here to love and support you. So
Right.
he's a great audience. In Her in the Moment, she says she's falling more in love with Grant, and having the space to go deeper is what she needed to fall more and feel okay loving this man. There's still no I love you from her, and there's no I love you, obviously, from Grant. She is still at the falling in love stage. It is fantasy suites, and she is clearly one of the top two. The fact that we haven't gotten to I love you with her yet is...
I know.
That she hasn't said it.
Yeah. It's not surprising that he hasn't said it, but
He is the first person to say I love you on this season.
I know,
which
it's
is
actually
crazy.
wild.
Crazy.
It's almost like he's like, I gotta get someone to say it. Like
he's like,
Do
we're
you-
all
what
the
if I
way
said I love
here.
you?
Do you love me? I love you. Like he's trying to get.
I feel like from the teaser, we're going to get a Juliana, I love you to his family before she says it to him.
Yeah, that
yeah.
Someone
I
asks
think
her
so.
like, do you love my son? And I
Yeah.
feel like she's going to say yes.
She also says as they're leaving, where she's like, I feel now I just have to like sit in my thoughts. And she goes, I have to, where I wrote it down. It's like I have to actually live in the truce of being alone with my thoughts. And I was like, that is simultaneously so smart and poetic, but also dumb as hell.
He does a lot of word salading.
Yeah. Truce of being alone in my thoughts. I was like, go off, queen. That shit pops.
Was it her who said the thing like last week or something that was, yes, it was her who was like, the pain of like going through this moment is really like stimulating like an emotional sensitivity for me or something. Like it was the kind of thing that was like a complete tautology that just led in a circle that was like, this is emotionally hard for me, but said in several phrases. So he leaves. She says, bye, boyfriend. He says, bye, girlfriend. And she dangles her feet in the tiny pool. And she talks in her poetic way about how she's feeling. She's like, they say distance makes the heart grow fonder, but distance is so hard when you know he's spending time with other girls and wanting to further those connections. Which I think is part of why distance makes the heart grow fonder, because you're like, I gotta lock it down. He's out there doing God knows what. And then she says this. We have a clip.
It's like, okay, have fun with your other girlfriends while I sit and get in my head for the rest of the week. It's definitely difficult. Now I know exactly how it feels to be
This is some real Love is Blind core.
They really have gone to the Love is Blind school of music supervision.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's like such an extended on Alone.
They're like, do we have a song that is like so literal about exactly what she's going?
And
this is close.
And it was so funny because I was like, oh, because the music on this season has been different. And when this song started, like the lyrics were kind of gibberish, but then it landed on being alone. And I was like, oh, that's why they picked it. Like it doesn't. They're like, we're gonna land this plane. Like, don't worry.
So next is Zoe's day, and we see her walking along the beach in a yellow bodycon dress. she thinks she could start falling in love this week. This could be the week when they let her train on falling in love technology. It's about to happen.
I just truly had such a hard time paying attention to this date at all because it felt like a waste of space.
And it was also like, it was mean that they were like, you've so many that you can't talk. Like, it was mean.
Oh, no. It was mean. They were like, you have no chance. And we are also going to handicap you further.
Yeah.
That was
by making you unable to talk.
Well, and also it's like
with Rachel,
from
who
Joey's
was
season.
number 3 on Joey's season.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, oh, this is so hard to be here and like not have had that much one-on-one time. So I need to talk to another slow burn, Rachel. I mean, I love seeing Rachel.
Me too.
But
She was so
like,
great.
She was so great and such a normal energy for a second, like someone not in like the mode. And I was like, oh man, she's so great, but she's not giving the correct information.
No, and like she knows it's not correct. I'm like, Rachel, come on. Like
She knows
the way
she
you are
barely had a
describing
chance.
the way you're describing Zoe's situation is disconnected from the reality of what it was like for you, like in every way. Your fantasy suites week was a disaster and then you went home. And so she's like, I relate to you. I had the least amount of time with Joey on my season and I was spiraling a little during fantasy suites because you can taste how close you are to being with someone you really care about. And Zoe's like, I'm still trying to figure out whether Grant and I have like things in common in terms of the life we would want to have together. And also I want to make sure that I get the softness and romance from him that I deserve. So basically like everything about a relationship she still needs to figure out.
The softness and romance also was a weird TikTok discourse filter that clicked in my head. I was like, girl, there was a moment where like her hair wasn't done at one point and I was like, girl is really trying out hard wig soft life. Like, come on. She's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen on the Bachelor franchise. And I'm like, girl.
She's
like, let me unplug this flat iron and see where life takes me.
You got to try stuff when you're in this position. Like you haven't had a one-on-one. It's fantasy suites week. And you need to try some off.
She also is pulling out the good fashion. Like Zoe knows it's her last week.
Yeah.
She's like, no need to hang on to any dresses for another week.
So
she looks amazing.
It makes me upset how beautiful this woman is. And it makes me that also her whole thing is she's like, I want someone to tell me that I deserve this, to show me that I'm worth this. Where it's like, no, you're just worthy of it because you're a person and you're smart and beautiful and you clearly have a lot going on in your life that would be really great for someone. But it's all just like, I want Grant or I want a man to, by choosing to be with me, is going to reaffirm that I deserve love, that I am worthy of love. When it's like, no, it's the other way around, sweetheart.
I feel like it's sort of the pageant ethos of the show that's like, it really is just about not finding a compatible relationship, but like validation of your sort of generic desirability and worthiness through being rated highly by the judge of the season, which is the Bachelor. So like, I want to place as high as possible. That will prove that I deserve this. And she tells Rachel tells the camera that if Zoe goes in with an open mind and heart, she has no worries about her going forward. And I'm like, Rachel, you got sent home for being too far behind. And
that is literally exactly what's going to happen here, too.
Zoe hasn't even had a one-on-one. So, like, Zoe is way behind where Rachel was at this point. So, like, no, she's screwed. Like, you gotta be
absolutely
honest.
screwed.
Yeah. She's like, just ask your questions, be confident, you'll be fine. And Zoe is left with an unjustified sense of optimism, telling Rachel that she's hopeful that she'll feel at the end of the date like, this is my man's and he's choosing me.
She won't.
She might actually feel that way, but if so, she'll be wrong.
Sure, for sure.
Grant meets her in a palapa. And
this looked more of an outdoor gazebo. I would say this felt gazebo to me.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Point of correction.
Everything is a palapa to me now. After I start thinking paradise, I'm like, I see palapas everywhere I go.
There are palapas everywhere for the eye to see.
The stone structure in the middle of my local park, that's a palapa.
Yeah.
He's like, Zoe makes me feel alive. We understand each other. And she's here for a reason. I'm excited to see where today could bring us.
I died at this.
you're
I was
the
like, yes,
reason.
Grant.
Right.
You did this.
No.
You
The
did
reason
this.
is that you needed a literal third body for this week.
Right.
That's the reason.
Yeah, saying that someone's there for a reason says absolutely nothing, because of course they're there for a reason, and that
But the reason could be literally anything.
Right.
don't worry, you're here for a reason.
You wanted somebody easy to eliminate. At this
Exactly.
point. And you thought, oh, I'd feel bad if it was Dina. And you really wanted Carolina, but everybody would have been mad at you. So
He should
that's
have
how
kept Carolina. She would have given him something at an elimination.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. Carolina would have given us some tension. Also,
He didn't even get a walkout, and she still took a shot at him when she left. Imagine if it happened after Fantasy Suite.
also, like, obviously, Grant wanted a no for night with Carolina.
Yes, that's why I'm like, just it happens. It happens. You bring, the two people you like the most and then the hottest. And like I'm
We
not
all
mad.
know this is how it
no
works.
tea, no shade.
I'm not mad at that.
Zoe is hoping for a chill, romantic day. Unfortunately, it's going to be an awkward, not romantic, nonverbal day. Silent couples yoga. They should have given her, if there was any eye toward her being successful this week, which, was maybe not on the table, but still to like even the deck a little bit, they should have given her like a walking around Punta Cana, like
Naked
Yes,
body
a-
painting.
like a-
sure.
naked body painting date. Something that was a little more something. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have done one of those weird spa dates that's kind of awkward, but also kind of sexy.
No, literally a ban on speaking.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
they
this
went
was
with.
this is one of like my brain would have gone, the mission here is not to be silent. The mission here is to still make him laugh being silent or
Yeah.
to like, I would have just talked. Like,
But Zoe's such a like panicky rule follower. Like Zoe does not. I mean, we saw her during like the Hannah Burner finance date where she was like, "I answered the questions correctly. I followed the rules."
right. She can't, but it's like, this would have been one of just like, what are they going to do? What are they going to, the worst they're going
Right. You needed to riff and giggle.
I mean, they do end up doing a certain amount of talking and giggling, but it's clear that she is not comfortable breaking the rules.
She's also not
And-
comfortable doing yoga. So
She's not comfortable
Right.
doing yoga. I also like, this is one of, I think every date we see in the moments that the women are like, I hate this date. I'm not having a good time. But then when they're with Grant, they don't betray that at all.
like, I loved it. It was so great.
And this is one, they also like, they couldn't hold each other's eye contact for very long. And like, they both had moments of like, okay, I'm going to try and make eye contact. I'm going to try to like lock in. And they both had moments of like breaking the eye contact really early. And and it's like, if you can't sit with the person that you're about to go have an intimate overnight date with and like make eye contact for more than like 8 seconds, it's like you are you're not interested in them. Like you're like, because the other route is to be like, okay, we are going to touch each other. I'm just going to make out with him for 40 minutes. Fuck yoga. I'm fucking him. Like that. Just take it over that way. And they neither of them can kind of do it.
Nope. There's
no real
not
sensuality.
enough there.
They don't really know, like, she's not comfortable with him. And Grant says something like, well, at least I know I'm going to have a lot of fun with Zoe. But, like, it doesn't look like they're really having fun
together.
They're
having fun at each other.
They're trying.
Yeah.
They're trying. They both hate doing yoga. They keep, like, knocking things over and, like, whispering to each other.
It's just not great.
And the instructor's, like, looking at them sternly. And they're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Zoe's worried her extensions are going to be like ruined by doing downward dog. Like there's just a lot of tension and anxiety and not having fun.
Yeah. Because I feel like we've seen, I can't remember a specific instance, but like on Paradise, they'll make people do this date and we're just going to laugh. We're going to dance when the instructors aren't
Well, they don't
looking,
have
like,
ease with each other, so they can't
Yeah.
laugh. It's incredibly awkward.
Then the kind of clown music that's been playing over them being bad at yoga kind of shifts abruptly into something very sensual, like something that would play over high budget feminist porn
Mhm.
as they're slowly exploring each other's bodies.
I see it.
They gaze into each other's eyes, and Grant is like, eventually we really started to feel in sync and connected. So we're to believe that this date like was a breakthrough for them, and now they're really comfortable with each other on a deep, unspoken
Just so
level.
obviously not a breakthrough for them.
Not
No.
true.
No.
And in her ITM, in her in the moment, Zoe basically is like, I'm annoyed that we lost out on all this time to talk.
She should be.
Yeah, as,
As
she
she
fucking
should.
should be.
She's like, I guess it was good that we did feel connected, but like we didn't really get to talk, and I don't know where his head's at.
She's like, I learned nothing about him during this.
Yeah, and
This
her
was useless.
and her questions when we get to the evening portion are good questions. Like she clearly had stuff she wanted to talk about.
Well, yeah,
kno-
because she knows
she
she
has-
barely knows him.
Basically, unending like there's no limit to the questions she could ask him. She knows nothing about him. And she's like, at least maybe tonight we'll have a chance to have a deep conversation. You can just see her wheels turning. Like, are they going to let us speak to each other tonight? Like, hopefully we'll have a chance.
It's rough.
And so on that note, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Zoe's night date and then, of course, Litia's date.
Can you keep up? I like love it.
And we are back, and it's time for Grant and Zoe to dress up so that they can have one actual conversation before Zoe gets sent home. And Zoe
I did love her
oh,
dress.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
It's like a
It's like-
plunging, gauzy rainbow colored dress.
Oh,
and it's
yes.
it's also very boot
I loved
forward.
it. I'm
yeah.
excited to see those Instagram accounts tell me what the
Where?
brand is so that I
Yeah.
can find it.
Wear it to a summer black tie.
Yeah,
party.
exactly.
But their connection on this date, and this is supposedly after their like breakthrough nonverbal intimacy date, it still feels so formal. Like they're sitting very stiffly next to each other, and he's kind of putting out a hand on her shoulder, like he knows he's supposed to touch her, but it doesn't feel like natural or sensual. It just feels like he's like, we're here
No.
on this interview, but I'm touching her shoulder because we're on a date.
Yeah, and they can't sort of get over like that yoga was weird. I don't like yoga. Like they can't sort of get over that for too long. Like too long.
It's finally like, by the way, I hated the date.
Yeah.
It was not good. I
That's
was
like
so
the
uncomfortable
most
whole
real
time.
moment between them, honestly, is
Yeah.
when she finally admits that she hated the date.
Props for that. I'm like, you could have just been like, oh my God, wasn't nonverbal yoga so fun? I feel
Awesome.
so connected. And nope, she's like, that sucked. And he's like, yeah, no, I had a hard time too. With the pretzel style sitting, especially, that's really hard for me. But it is so important for us to spend time together. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And he tries to explain again because he has to like justify continually why she didn't get a one-on-one. He's like, you know, we had some bumpy times and we didn't get that one-on-one. But when I saw you at hometowns with your loved ones, I saw a wife and I saw something worth pursuing, even
This
though we
made
haven't
He
me-
saw
been
it.
together.
He saw
He saw a wife.
He
Well,
saw
he goes,
a wife.
I saw a wife, and then he goes, I saw the real Zoe. So the real Zoe is a wife?
The real Zoe is a wife.
And
Well,
it's-
that's all a woman can be, Allie, and that's actually the greatest compliment you can
And
give
it's
a
so
woman.
crazy. I was like explaining, I was like talking to my dad about the season, and he was like, I read your recaps, but I don't watch the show. So I was kind of like really catching him up on like what's been going on. And that was when I said, I was like, he only says, I see a wife, a mother. And that's when my dad was like, oh, he's objectifying them. Like this is just objectification.
I mean,
To just
yes.
describe a woman as because it could be one thing if Grant was like, when I saw you with your family and how happy you all were, I saw someone I could have a future
right,
with,
or even I
Right.
saw my wife.
yeah, I saw someone
Like,
yeah,
he doesn't even
Someone who could be my
specify-
wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
just like that's what a wife looks like. A wife is a person that like smiles when she sees her family, and it's like, what are you talking about?
That's also as someone who recently got married, like that kind of talk is exactly the part of like being married that made me the most nervous, is to be identified as
Yeah.
a wife in this like oblique floating way out in the universe. You've transitioned, you're a wife. That's the thing you
Yeah.
are now, woman.
Which is why in my relationship, in the name of equality, I call my boyfriend my wife at times.
It's only
But
fair.
then-
I go,
And then
"How
you get
could
to be a wife guy, which is
Yeah.
like the best.
I go, how could you speak to your husband like this, my dear wife? My beautiful white wife.
I love that. I'm going to take that.
Yeah. Just everybody in the marriage is a wife. Like, then what happens? Like, is Grant a wife? Could he?
Well, no, his job is going to be to keep the family together through his like broad-shouldered manliness and by making everyone sit down at the
It takes a lot of work to be a wife. Could he crack it as a wife?
I don't know that he could hack it as a wife.
When you look at Grant, you don't see a wife.
No,
Oof,
I don't see a
that's
wife.
brittle.
I don't see a wife.
That's not good.
Yeah. I see a lot of things, but wife is not one of them.
Zoe says that what he saw was like that in real life, she loves being a normal, positive, kind, happy person. I think that what both of them are kind of dancing around too is that she was like an early season villain. And he's like, that's not the real you. That kind of woman could not be a wife. But you seem like actually maybe outside of this show, you're nice and would be friendly to my family and are normal. And therefore you are a wife. And she's like, yes, it's true. In real life, I'm
Exactly.
nice and like
She
a
does
wife type person.
Seem like she would be a fun hang. Like, if she was in your girl group, like,
I mean, I would like to hang out with Zoe.
yeah, she seems like a real fun hang in the girls group.
And we keep saying this. I think it's very telling that she managed to make up with everyone in the house after how hard she came out. Like, she clearly has those skills
Yes.
and that capacity. And she talks about how she really wants to be part of her husband's family one day and like bring the families together. But she hasn't really gotten through to her mission for the night, which is learn a few things about Grant.
Learn literally anything about this man.
Yes.
She's like, I know you're a good man and you're genuine, but I think you're a hard nut to crack. This was funny because he's not. He just has never had a conversation with her.
That's the thing. She's like, you're
He's like, it's
a
hard
tough
to
nut
learn
to
about
crack
you.
in the sense that we've talked
Yeah.
1.5 times.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
you're a tough nut to crack in that you're a nut that's across the room. And
Yeah, right.
I'm in a different part of the kitchen.
Yeah, I got to run to you to crack you.
Yeah.
And so Grant decides to really open up to her about who he really is. I believe we have a clip.
You know, I think that you are a good man, and I know that you're genuine. Maybe a little hard to crack sometimes, but
You know, I like to have fun. I love R&B. I love rap. You know what I'm saying? My favorite color is blue.
what's my favorite color?
Is it blue? Also, what is it? Like you said, what is it?
No, I mean teal. I think it's
Teal.
teal.
Okay.
So they got really deep. I think
This is devastating to me.
I couldn't. I was like, it is over.
they're sharing
Over.
favorite colors. This is a
Yeah.
disaster. It's done. You can't come back from that.
And it's also so funny because he clearly is like, well, my favorite color is blue, so yours also must be blue.
Why not guess blue? Like, that's the color I'm thinking of right now.
When I look at you, I see a favorite color and it's blue.
Like, why would he know her favorite color? They've clearly never talked about it. And so he's just like, I guess the same one as mine. No,
He's
it's
like,
not
wait,
that.
why do you? And then you can also see him panicking. He's like, why do you think I know this?
And I also love her just being like, teal. Whose favorite color is teal?
I know.
It's such a like, oh my God, this was a little girl in the library, like checking out books, being like, and my favorite
Incredible.
color is teal.
Just
Yeah.
incredible stuff.
Like my favorite jelly sandals. It's
Mhm.
like, I didn't realize that adults ever thought about their favorite color, except like
only
I'm
on The Bachelor.
and increasingly, like recent seasons of The Bachelor, they have been more and more obsessed with this. I'm like, I thought that we reached the age of like 17 at most, and we were like, all the colors have their place.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not
Or-
going to think about that anymore.
Or for me, it's like I have a favorite color for outfits. I have a favorite color for home decor. I have a favorite color
Yes.
for, makeup. It's like which favorite, but just like a color that captures my vibe. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, I used to say my favorite color was blue, and then I was like, there's so many ways in which color manifests in my life. I'm not going to really get that attached
You can't
to
limit me just to blue.
Right.
But also, this is like the date before the proposal week. And he is telling her about
bad.
himself that he likes to have fun. He likes music. He likes blue. Like, this is the layer at which they know each other. She doesn't know the most basic things about him. She also, like, praises his kindness. She's like, I know you would be so patient and caring with me and with our kids. But, you know, I've mostly in our limited time tried to tell you about myself. I really don't know much about you.
Yeah, fair.
And
Fair hit.
True. This is a very true statement.
she's like, having fun and R&B are actually not enough information. Please dig
Can you
deeper.
give me some more?
Yeah.
Grant has never told her the story about his family dysfunction that we have heard him tell, like, basically every other woman on the season. And so he tells her about his family saga and how much he wants a family that eats dinner together and is close and eats dinner together and everyone's at the table for dinner. And she's like, I didn't have that either. And I also want to have dinner together.
So they're perfect for each other,
Yeah,
is what you're
and
saying.
This is a moment also that really could have been, as much as he likes the person he's with to like mirror back his experiences, because it seems like he sometimes can't fathom that other people have lived different lives. For her to be like, yes, I also had a family that struggled with a lot of addiction and illness, and I had a family where we weren't together and where we were like, you know, I did feel that sort of anxiety as a teenager about, you know, my family. It's like that really should have been a moment of like, this is something we relate on. This is something that we could build some compatibility out of this moment. But again, he sort of doesn't know how to like kind of respond. Like he doesn't.
Well, he
sort of know
doesn't
how to
respond. He
to
doesn't
that.
ask her a follow-up question.
Well, and I think that he feels like that work is done by exchanging these stories. He's like,
Right.
because then we get his in the moments being like, oh, well, like, we both want a better family life than we had as kids. So we have a lot in common. We could build that together. So by exchanging those stories, they've like established everything they need to establish. And I think the family dinner thing is so interesting to me because I was a kid, like all of us, and my family did have family dinners and I liked it and I wanted to do it with my kids. And there are so many things you want to do with your kids where you realize that the part that makes it hard isn't usually the other parent like not caring about having dinner with the family. It's so many other things that can come in the way. Maybe you find over the years that you don't enjoy spending time together. And so if you do have family dinners, they're miserable or you just stop having them. You know, like achieving the family dinners is based on so much more than being like, you want to have family dinners and so do I. So we'll just have them and they'll be really healthy.
Yeah. And I also like, this was a thing where I was like, oh, he does not see her sort of romantically when he's sort of like, she's presented herself as a survivor, like nothing gets her down. Like that's like, as a person who has gone through a lot, like I can say like I like actively tell people like, please do not describe me like in those terms. It is very like flattening of your identity, and it also flattens like how difficult those things are, and it sort of doesn't allow, like, you know, he talks about that she's sort of tough and that nothing, she, you know, she doesn't get knocked down and that there's this other side of her, but it's like clearly there's the woman that he wants to be with, he wants to pick up, not that she picks herself up, if that makes sense. And it's like, it's also just a very like flattening, not really seeing the whole person way to talk about someone, and especially to talk about a Black woman like that. And I don't think he does not mean any malice by it, but it is a thing like that I've had to tell people, like when you're talking about me and you're talking about my experience with cancer and leukemia, it's like those are not words that I enjoy and I don't use for myself, because it is very flattening of how difficult someone's life can be in a way that I was just like, oh, he doesn't really see it.
That's really interesting. And I think the whole way he talks about her is really reflective of that. Like, he's regarding her sort of from a distance and like describing things that he thinks are sort of objectively admirable about her. There's no intimacy to it. And I think that that comes through in these very like objectifying, like flattening ways that he is like categorizing her.
You just feel the distance between
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And that comes across in his language. And I also think he has sort of already disconnected from her. He knows that this is going to be the easy elimination. So he's not making any effort to continue to deepen that connection, really.
Yeah. What he's saying is stuff like, you know, I see so much in you. Even though I messed up your favorite color, there are more important things I see in you. And I'm like, that's not how you sum up a meaningful
Yeah.
conversation.
Like, I see things.
With
There are
someone you're
things
about
in
to
you.
marry.
There are things in you, and you're so strong.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
it's like the mentorship thing. It's like, I see so much in you, like the potential to like rise in this industry. Like it's not an intimate or romantic or
No,
deeply knowing way of talking to
No.
someone. So he offers her the fantasy suite card. She says she's down. And in his In the Moment, he says that her opening up meant a lot to him and he's always seen her for who she is. They have a lot of similarities and he can see himself engaged to her. He can see it. He
Oh,
can, like,
I thought he said I could see an engagement with Zoe. Maybe not
honestly,
with
yeah,
her.
maybe that is what he
that
said.
he could see himself. He's like, she could get engaged. She has
she getting a
She could do it. I
could get
think
engaged.
she really could.
Mhm.
another
Do it
layer
with
of verbal
someone.
distancing.
Yes.
She is a wife. I could see her an engagement involving her. So they make out in the suite, they pop champagne, and once they get some privacy, we hear Zoe saying, "Yay."
Bitch, I love
Sexy.
her. I love her.
Again, I would like to hang
Justice
out
for
with her.
Zoe. I love that her very like flat kind of affect is consistent in these moments when there's often so much just like bubbliness. She's just like, "Yay."
Yeah, I have a lot of
That's all I
like
got for you.
kind of sardonic, flat-toned female friends. Like,
Yeah.
So you
obviously,
see it, you're like, I get
Yeah.
it. I get
I'm
you,
like,
Zoe.
I went to a women's college. Look at these glasses. That is who I have connected with as a person. So just like a woman in literally something called the
Yeah.
fantasy suite, being like, woo.
Yeah. Zoe is the only person left that I personally feel like I could hang out with.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
really like that. I don't like necessarily have
Dislike
animus
either.
for
Yeah.
the other two, but
No,
I'm
I
like they're
actually-
so I feel so different from them. And Zoe does
Yeah.
feel like the only one left who's sort of a kid.
Well,
in
it
some
like
ways.
makes sense to me that she's living in New York. Like, she is a person I would encounter in my life and be like, yeah, let's get a fucking drink.
I could
Like, yeah.
text her, can I be mean for a second? And she would
Yes,
answer
hell
back
yes.
so fast. If I texted Juliana, can I be mean for a second? She would not like that. And if I texted Litia, she would start praying over me. And again, not the type of woman I need. I need a person who's like, be specific. Do you have a picture? Before we talk shit, can I see a picture?
Oh, yeah, that's me. I'm like, I need a visual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the next morning, we do not see them in bed. I don't think I've ever seen a
This
post
is
fantasy
nuts.
suite morning like this.
Wild.
I
Wild.
lost my mind.
It looks like they met up from separate locations. They're walking down the beach with a picnic basket for breakfast.
the same outfit. Like,
And it's
they're
like almost business casual, like
wearing
a
a white
collared
button down
shirt.
and shorts.
It really
It's
looks
just,
like
there's nothing less sexy than this morning after. Just two friends meeting up for some brunch.
sitting bolt upright on a blanket next to each other.
Being on a beach at sunset, romantic, sexy, intimate. Being on a beach at 7 a.m. That's clinical. That's sterile.
Having on a white button down shirt at the beach at 7 a.m.
You could do a PowerPoint on the beach at 7 a.m. and it would feel appropriate. This was ungodly.
This was very PowerPoint coded in vibe. I like at certain points when you could just see her shoulders in the white button down and like her hair is all neat and he's sitting next to her very formally. I was like, it really feels like they are having a follow-up meeting.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like they couldn't do like on the balcony of the suite if you didn't want to show them in bed. Like maybe they did.
But they want us to know, like, nothing has been more sexless than this date.
Oh God.
They truly parted ways right after the cameras went down and they met back up after a chase night in their separate quarters. So Zoe says that she is happy and Grant says that he is too. He says, I'm very glad we had that talk. Just to be clear, it was a talk that we had. And Zoe says that the next step is to build on where they're at now, and he toasts to that, even though he knows that there will be
there will be no
building
time to
anything.
build. We will not be building. We will be dismantling.
Not that there's much to dismantle.
Yeah, true.
It's like closing
It'll
up
take
a
about
folding
5
chair.
minutes.
Yeah.
So next is Litia's date. Litia is at Breathless Resort and Spa having a giant Technicolor pink and teal drink that I spent way too long trying to find on like the Breathless Resort and Spa website.
What
because
is
I was
it?
like,
Did you
what
find
is
it?
that? I didn't find it. I don't know if that they don't have like a drinks menu.
Was it like a
with
slushy?
It looked like a sort of probably alcoholic slush, but she wouldn't have an
Not
alcoholic slushie.
alcoholic. It was a virgin slushy.
yeah.
Because of course it was probably like a slushie. Anyway, she's very anxious, thinking about Grant being intimate with the other women. So naturally, Kaity is here to mentor her through having your bachelor fuck other women.
I
And
had
how do you
forgotten about how nuts that
This
fantasy
was also
suite
a
week was.
A season. This was the season I missed being in the hospital.
Oh,
So I was
right.
like, first I was like, I have to learn how to spell this woman's name because it was a surprise
Kaity.
when it appeared on my screen. But I went and just watched like the clip of just him telling her,
Oh, it's crazy.
and
it was
just
crazy.
her being like, boink boink, like doesn't even. I don't know what happens after that. So
He handled it real badly. Then he like had to go back to the other woman and be like, I said on national TV to Kaity that we had sex, and the other woman is like, what? Why?
Yeah, she's like,
Would
you
you
probably
do that?"
shouldn't have done that to me. Like, why would you
Oh,
do that?
no.
It's very bad.
And then he
And-
dumps her. Like it's almost like he kind of is like, sorry, I told everyone we had sex.
Also,
and
we're-
she's like, well, but will we get married? And he's like, no.
No.
does he?
I'm choosing Kaity.
and
But
he ends up with
well
Kaity.
that,
Ends up
that,
with
that's-
Kaity. They're
that
still
ends
together.
well is that Kaity and Zach are still together, and actually Kaity and the other woman Gabby are still like best friends.
Okay, good.
So
Yeah.
they all recovered from it, but it was like very traumatic for both Kaity and Gabby.
Yeah. And Kaity is here to help with Lydia's struggles with Fantasy Suite.
She looks beautiful. I loved Katie's
Yeah.
darker hair, and her floral dress was very fun.
beautiful dress. I love a big, billowy, brightly colored.
It
like,
just looked
beach
very
dress.
happy.
It
So
made me.
good.
I was like, oh, it made me really want to go on a tropical vacation.
Exactly.
Like,
I was like,
the
oh, I want to wear a
tourism-
sundress.
the
It's
tourism
working.
board is working overtime.
Send us all to the DR.
Yes.
We will purchase some dresses
Yes.
for the occasion.
Kaity reminds us of all of this whole like thing where Zach declared in advance that he wouldn't have sex that week, and then he confessed
Rookie
to
move.
having sex with someone else. And Latia's like, I would have just been like, I wish you wouldn't have told me that. And Kaity was like, yep, that's what I said. I really wish he didn't tell me that. And we could have just talked about it after the show, but instead it like ruined my whole fantasy suite date, and we didn't focus on our relationship, and it really sucked. And Litia says, yeah, I think maybe I should just say to him, like, I don't want to hear about this. And if it's you and me in the end, we will have a conversation about what happened this week. But like, I don't want to spend our limited time together being upset. I want to just pretend those other women don't exist.
I mean, this was some genuinely good advice. Maybe a little too good, because then there
Right.
was no tension.
And I think also like this has not been a problem with Grant that he is.
Well, that's the thing. I
Like-
was like, I don't think he's really trying to talk about.
No, and he is he can take the note of like, you made out with someone in front of me. This hasn't been his problem. There's
No.
other seasons where it's like the person showing favoritism, or they're making out with everybody in front of everybody, or what, even on like Caitlyn's season when she slept with someone before Fantasy Suites and then told people. But it's like, this has not been it was a thing where I was like, is this the problem that we're having with him?
No, I mean, the only reason it happened with Zach is that he told all of the women that he wasn't going to have sex
Right,
that week.
yeah.
And so then,
And then
he
he
violated
did.
that. And he was like, they're going to think that I didn't have sex with anyone, and I have to disclose the truth, which is why it was super dumb for him to make that announcement to begin with. But
Yeah.
Grant didn't do that. And yeah, he's never like brought up
No.
like, oh, I just think you should know that I exchanged some really intimate words with this other
No,
woman
I think it
earlier."
only would have been an issue if Litia had entered this date and said, by the way, it's a deal breaker for me.
right.
you were
Well, that's
intimate.
the thing. It was already completely kind of her decision for this to come up on
Yeah.
the date. Zach's is the only situation where I think it really came up during the date.
And
Yeah.
you can
From him bringing it up.
like
him.
even in this conversation, she's sort of not even saying like, I don't know if I want to like. She's not saying I won't be intimate or I don't want him to be
Right.
intimate. Like she's just sort of like, yeah, I don't want to. Like she's sort of throughout the day spirals herself into a completely different like ending point that of like, I don't want to be intimate. I don't want to have sex. Like it's like, yeah, talk about that here. Like what is it? It was just sort of like, we're talking about a thing that is not a problem for Litia. It's not a problem for Grant. It hasn't been something that's happening. And the actual thing is she's winding herself up to say, I don't want to have sex in the fantasy suite. It's like, talk through that. Like it was just, yeah, very odd.
Yeah, it feels like they set Litia up with this conversation to have with Grant during Fantasy Suites Week and gave her the last date so that she could be like,
Intentionally.
it would really upset me if you had sex with the other women.
But she doesn't
And then they neutralized it. They brought in Kaity to have a conversation with her about how important it is to not talk about it. And Litia has the confusing takeaway that she should tell Grant not to tell her about it. But like really the thing that was averted was Litia bringing it up with Grant and
Right.
being like, I hope
Yeah.
you didn't do that.
I think
And
between
that would have
Kaity and
added
her
some
mother,
drama to the
who also
episode.
like had the same advice. Her mom, right, during
was like, don't
hometowns
get
was like,
into it.
don't get into it.
Everyone
Don't-
knows it's a
yeah.
bad idea to bring it up because
Yeah.
with Clayton's season, that's what happened. And it blew up the whole end of the season and everyone was unhappy. So afterwards, Litia says that it was really reassuring to meet Kaity. And I'm like, yeah, she won. And now she is in a happy relationship
Yeah, they
with
gave-
the lead of her season.
They let you talk to the winner. Like they,
Yeah.
you know, in the,
Did they see you in that light?
I feel like, I don't know. I felt a little bit of a misdirect to me. I was like, they set Zoe up with a number 3 and Juliana up with a number 2, Litia with a final 1.
Could
I
it be that
don't
one
think
to
it's
one?
going to play out exactly like that.
Well,
No,
just the fact
I-
that
like,
they're
it
setting
makes me
Litia
think-
up so strongly as the front
Well,
runner this
exactly.
episode is
It makes me think it's
suspicious.
going to be like reversed.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's sort of like when they had Leslie with Kelsey.
Yeah.
Mm. And Leslie did her job. She stirred the pot. She was like, you should freak out, girl. Be careful.
right.
So Litia puts on a forest green legging and bra set and walks over a bridge to meet Grant in the woods. In the moment, he's kind of setting the table for the day. He's like, Litia and I are both falling in love. A day like today could bridge, see what they did there with bridge, could bridge the gap from falling in love to being in love. He is very aware of the advancement of love levels.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's got to be freaking out that no one has bridged the gap into being in love yet.
I know. I wonder if this is part of why he ultimately jumps the gun and goes there himself. He's like,
Oh,
someone
I have
has to
so
say I love
many
you to
thoughts.
me.
Yeah.
So many thoughts about that.
We'll get there, obviously.
He's like, I know she'll be a great wife and mom, but today he needs to see the adventurous side to her because a wife isn't just a wife and a mom. She also has to be a person who is adventurous.
Well,
Cut
and
to
serious
Litia
and
being
funny.
like, I am not adventurous. I actually hate adventure.
Right.
And he's like, I can't believe how adventurous you are.
Yeah.
Thank you for being adventurous.
And she literally
Check.
is like, her face is the same color as her legging. She's just like, oh.
Yeah. She's like, I'm going to vomit at any moment.
Yeah, I hate
Yeah.
that. She literally says, I'm not normally one for adventure.
Well,
They're going zip lining, and she is not happy about it.
everything they give her, she's like, this is crap. This is dirty. I don't like this. I don't want this to touch me. That like, it's so, never before has a woman not liked zip lining this much. And
Yeah.
Grant is just like, wow, we're having a great day.
He's like, it's
So much
so
fun.
nice that Latia is having such a fun time.
And
She's
she's like-
so adventurous. She's like, I'm literally thinking about what I had for lunch because it's about to come up.
And my favorite is someone like one of the workers at the place like hands her a harness and she's like, someone peed themselves in this. I know
why
they
is
did.
it wet?
Why is it? This is gross. This is covered in urine.
I know she's not doing the thing where she's like, oh, I'm scared of heights. Like, Grant, I don't know if I can do it. She's just making like jokes that aren't jokes about how terrible every part of this is. Ha ha, like someone peed in this harness. And they climb up and they start doing the zip line. And she's like, I'm not one to barf on dates, but he might see my lunch.
Yes.
I'm not one to barf on dates. Some people, they enjoy barfing on dates, but for me, that's not really
me,
something
normally.
I get into.
It might happen though.
The other thing that's so funny, they're walking up the little thing and she's like, this doesn't feel safe. I don't like this. And then you hear like a little clink of like a carabiner hitting something. And Grant is like, oh, I think my thing fell or something. And she's like, be careful. Can someone double check his carabiner? Like, never before has a woman had a bad time. Capital B, capital T. She's having a bad time.
She's having such a bad time. And like his takeaway from this is that they're going to have a life of adventure together. And I'm like, this is the last time she will do this for you. She is doing this because it is a fantasy suites week date on The Bachelor.
She can't just like opt out. She's got to just do it.
When you're together in the future, she's going to be like, hell no, I'm not going ziplining. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And you're not seeing that side of her, nor do you seem to be picking up on the abundant evidence that that's what's happening.
It really feels like he is not seeing her during this. He's seeing what he wants to see, which is this perfect wife and mother loves adventure.
And he does have it's like he has a little timeline where it's like we get married, then we have a life of adventure, and then we have kids. So he needs to make sure she's going to be locked in for the life of adventure.
She's not.
And then they're going to have kids. And it's like, and with other people, he's like, well, I know she's locked in for the adventure. Is she locked in for the kids? Like he has these two eras of his marriage that he's looking for.
So she is really freaking out, but she's trying so hard to seem game that they also don't have that sort of connection that can come from him helping her through this, which I also thought was kind of telling of how a lot of this season has been going, where it's like they're not even connecting on that cliche level of him being like, it's okay, I'm here with you.
He had that with Serafina on the bridge jump.
That's true.
But he doesn't have it. I think he's sort of.
And we all saw how that went.
Yeah. I think he's so secure in his relationship with Litia that he's sort of like, again, like not consciously, but he's in like boyfriend mode of several years. And like if I went on
that's a good point.
like with my boyfriend, we've been together 9 years. I don't think he would be like, this moment's really going to bring us together. He would be like, are you going to throw up? Are you going to okay.
Yeah, are you good? Okay, I'm going ahead. Bye.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Right. It's like, because when you're so secure, you're like, I don't need to look at this moment to give me anything else. Like,
right.
And he's not looking at this moment to reaffirm love. He's looking at this moment to reaffirm adventure seeking.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is not what she really needs in this moment. But ultimately, I think all of the jokes and comments about how she's going to throw up do start to penetrate, because by the end, he's like, she seemed a little uneasy at points.
You think?
And so after ziplining, they get to sit by an idyllic turquoise cenote for champagne. And she asks about his thoughts on her hometown. He loved it. And
so many, I would have so many
questions
about
I know.
Hometown.
Same.
And she mentions that she had heard through the grapevine that he asked her family if she'd move away from Utah. And she's like, I would, by the way.
Did we see that conversation?
No, we didn't see that. We saw them having other conversations that felt like better ones to have with her directly. And this confirms for me that he just was asking her family about what she wants for her future and had not asked her.
Yeah. And I think she even says like, oh, I never brought that up, like for you to ask them. Like she sort of says like, oh, I never told you that. Like I never told you I did or didn't want to move. Maybe she was saying I never told you I wanted to stay.
It's more like, it seems like she's saying like, I heard you were asking about this and I have the information for you because I know what I would do.
You could ask me.
So I will just tell you that I would. Like my family has their presumptions, so like I know that I would. And Grant says that his dad is in New Jersey right now working on his recovery. And he makes it sound like he's having like a hard time. And he's like, he needs more support around him. And Litia's like, should we move to New York and support him? Let's do it. I'm in.
Litia.
She's going to be his Jen Affleck. She's going to move to New York with him to support him.
This also just was like such a contrast to the Zoe date coming right after. It's like they are having conversations about where they would move to support his father through his like addiction recovery. And Zoe has just learned that his father struggles with addiction. Yeah. Like it is just.
She's just learned that he likes R&B. I mean, there's a lot of stuff Zoe has just learned. I think also what we're seeing with Litia is like one of the things that Grant really likes about her, which is that she is a capital A wife and a mother. Like she very like she barely knows him, and she's very much like, how can I dive in and be his helpmeet?
Right. How can I nurture you? How can I be there for you? What do you need?
She has said that she sees the broken inner child in him and wants to mother that child. Like that is, you know, and I think there also is a level like in this specific conversation about moving is he was like, would you be happy if we moved, or would you be happy if we moved to New York? And she was like, well, I want both of us to be happy. So I wouldn't even worry about being happy. It would just be whatever I needed to do to support. And it's like, this is a lot of like sacrifice, very like even to say like, I have to move somewhere for a family member that's in crisis. Will you come with me? Like, because he doesn't live in New York, does he?
No.
Right.
No,
it's like
he lives in Texas.
This is like a lot of big leaps, like very quickly. And her response to it is like, well, I want you to be happy. We should want each other to be happy. So we should do this.
It just feels so rooted in that like old school sense of the woman's role in the relationship. And like, she very much ascribes to that. It's just like, once I got married or even in a relationship, then my place is by his side. My place is to support him. And that's partly why we've always been annoyed at the assumption on this show that like the women will move to wherever the man live, and kind of pay attention to how they talk about it, because it's such a like conservative conception of gender roles to be like, well, obviously whatever you need as the man in the relationship, I'm going to move to wherever that I'm going to leave my family, my career. It's not even a second thought. Like there's still 2 other women in the process. Of course, actually, I'm going to volunteer the idea that we move to New York to support your dad.
I was going to say, like, obviously it's like a lovely thing to be like, your father needs support around him. I am willing to like do that thing for you. But it does feel a little bit like, how many things is she compromising in order to like secure the role of wife and mother?
And I was going to say, like, again, knowing the family business is addiction medicine. And so you don't need to move where the person going to rehab is. Like that, like very rarely is that sort of like specifically the thing. And people go to rehab like all over the country, far away from where they live. And in fact, like that also might be like a benefit, that they can be in a place like where they're forming new routines, they're making new connections, so that if they choose to go back to where they live, they can like avoid those triggers that cause them, there are things where it's like, sometimes you have to change the way that you drive to work because you drive by the liquor store, or you drive by, a bar where you used to stop. And so it is a different thing. They're sort of talking about it the way that you would say, oh, I have an elderly parent who I need to like be with every day, when at times with rehab, that's not always like the amount of time that you have to spend.
That's interesting.
And the amount of care. Like you're not, Grant's not his sober coach. Like, and I think I understand if his dad is like, I'm going to stay in New Jersey or I'm going to stay in New York, and Grant being like, I want to be near my dad. But it does sort of seem like the way that Litia is responding and the way that Grant is kind of framing it is, again, this sort of like all the energy and the focus in the family is on the father, and Grant really has to be near the father. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if you had a family member in rehab, you would say we're going to move to where they're in rehab. Like it's
That's a
just,
really good point.
it's a weird,
Yeah,
it's an
that's interesting.
odd like response to offer up, let's move near him. Or it's just like not what I've seen. At my mom used to run a treatment center, and the people like the other people's family, like maybe you go for like a few weeks, but you don't like move there.
I mean,
It's just
part of it
interesting.
does seem like maybe that is Latia's way of conceptualizing family members in need, is someone like, we know she's had elderly grandparents who need care, like maybe people who are ill. Like, I don't know how much she is around like addiction and treatment as a Mormon, like where there's like a strong sober culture. Like, is she just like thinking of it as like, we must go there and every day like assist him with his medical needs? I don't know if that's even what Grant was prompting.
It's unclear. There's also a chance that like, Grant grew up in New Jersey, so he maybe just always
Wants
had
to-
plans to move
back. Yeah.
back to where, closer to where he's from.
Yeah.
It's unclear.
So Litia tells him that she didn't think she'd feel so strongly for him in this process, and that has made it harder than she thought it would be. And she's like, I know about the other women's feelings for you. That makes me really anxious, but it's worth it because this is how I met you. And Grant tells her, I'm going to be in love with one woman. And
2 Grant. It's gonna be 2.
Yeah, I saw the commercial preview. It's
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah,
We know
definitely
it's
gonna be 2. But he's like, I'm going to marry one woman and be with her forever. And if it's us, I want us to be really solid. And which is like, yeah, sure. It's not clear to me how he's saying he's going to ensure that in any way. But he does want that to be the case. Litia is feeling at this point like she's not ready for physical intimacy because she wants to protect her feelings. But she doesn't tell him. It just seems like she's saying, like, I've now arrived at this belief that I'm not ready for physical intimacy. And this brings us to the night portion of the date. They head to dinner at Secrets Punta Cana, and Litia has on a crocheted mint green dress with a high baby blue ruffled collar.
An impossible outfit to pull off. And she pulls it off.
I was just like, in the close-ups, it's giving baby blanket. Like, you can't make Litia look ugly, but that little baby blue ruffle and the mint green, I was like, it's a baby blanket.
She's had a lot of fashion wins this season. There's bound to be a miss in there.
Yeah. It's almost like she's emerging from it. You're like, this beautiful woman is coming out of this baby blanket. Like, what's happening? Grant tells her that she's fun to be around and adventurous, which she is not.
Grant, you were not paying attention.
This woman is many things. She's not adventurous. Like, no.
No. And if you ask her, I think she'll tell you that. She's pretty clear on that.
She's very open, actually, about it.
I mean, I'm not adventurous, and I have gone ziplining without a second thought. So, like, she is not adventurous. He asks her about next steps for them. And she's like, should we meet your family and get engaged? That's what I was thinking. What were you thinking?
I've seen this program. I've seen this television show. That's what next week is for.
It is so funny that he asked her about next steps. It's like, Grant, you're the boss.
You're in
You're
charge.
assigning
You
the next
decide.
steps.
Yeah, he does have this weird, like, with her specifically, he gives up a lot of control to her.
Yeah, it's
just
very
her.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Grant senses that he is in pursuit of Litia because of these like obstacles that her faith and her like principles and
Right. There's these cultural barriers.
and she
he's
checked
like,
him very early on when he used that like pickup line on her, and she was like,
True.
I didn't like that. I think he has that sense that he's in pursuit of her that he doesn't feel with the others.
See, I think she has strong mom with the itinerary energy, which is like clearly a personal wound that he is healing. So he's just like, what's next? What's next? Like, it's very There's a lot of mommy going on.
Yeah. And this mommy is having dinner at the table with him.
Yes.
So that's gotta feel good. Grant asks her about her timeline on having kids, because he did talk to her family and they were like, her womb has been empty for too long. She will have babies as soon as you are willing to put one inside her. And Litia she knows that Grant is not in a huge rush to have kids. So she is very careful. She's like, I think we're pointed in the same direction. We'd figure out the timeline together. But in my mind, I always thought 2 years, because I'm 31 now. It's going to start getting harder and I don't want to keep pushing it off. And Grant is like, great, that completely makes sense. Cut to in the moment of Grant being like, oh my God.
Grant.
Because he's 31.
Yeah.
I don't, 2 years seems reasonable if you want to have a bunch of kids, which she does.
Yeah. Men have magical thinking about this. We started having kids when I was 31 and Greg was 35. And 5 years later, you're 40 and you're exhausted.
Yes.
And you have very little kids. Do you really want to, how long do you want to wait to have kids, Grant?
Well, I think this isn't, he's thinking, okay, well, then we gonna have our sponsorship years where we're doing SponCon. Then we can we'll travel, maybe go to a music festival. I think
well, this is why I think Juliana has the edge, because first of all, I don't get the sense that she's I need to have 4+ children. So that gives you a bit more flexibility. And she's also just, she doesn't seem... She doesn't have that cultural imperative that Litia does. And she's a couple years younger.
Yeah, I think for Grant, it's if he got married and they got pregnant, that would be great. But I don't think he is
he's not down to actively try.
It's I've gone through, I've talked to fertility doctors. I've had friends go through it. It's if you were there's a difference between we got pregnant and we are trying to conceive a child with the aid of medicine and science. And I think Grant,
well, that's a very overwhelming experience. Yeah. When you're very much committed to that kind of being the center.
Yeah. And I think if you're Litia, you also have to be thinking when I was planning, and I don't think that my husband did this, or a lot of men that I know, I was counting backwards. I was like, how old do I want to be when I have my first child? How old do I want to be when I have my last kid? Counting backwards, age gaps, all these things. And then you're thinking well, when do we start trying? That's going to be almost a year before I have the kid. What if it doesn't go well? And then you have a year of trying, and then you start fertility treatments. There's so many things that can delay it. You're 31, you want 4 kids, and you want to start by the time you're 33, you could quite realistically be 36 and dealing with fertility treatments and not have gotten anywhere yet. Yeah. She's thinking about this stuff, and Grant is I think we'll just hang out and do SponCon.
It's sort of we'll have kids. It's an inevitability.
Right. Well, I just think a lot of men are not aware of the labor and also just toll on a woman's body that it takes especially if you have to use scientific intervention. That is a lot on the body.
Yeah. And so he's freaking out, but he's also well, if you're in love, you compromise. That can change your perspective. Maybe I can have a kid in 2 years, I guess. I don't know. And
this is the point that I was he's going to choose Juliana.
Yeah. I feel that's sort of what happened with Joey and Lexi when they had that conversation. And he was if you really love someone, you could do that. But do I really love Lexi? She seems great. Anyway, bye, Lexi. Best of luck to her. Grant is I'm scared of losing you or something coming in between us. And basically he's worried about her anxieties about the process. And Litia says, well, it does make me spiral to think about the other women. So let me take this opportunity to say that I don't want to know or hear about your time with the others. And he's great. I wasn't
planning on it.
This is another thing that it really made me laugh. I think in the hometown and in this one too. He wants to say something profound that he noticed about the woman that he's with. And then she's just sort of like, oh, I've gotten over that. I'm onto something else. And he's just sort of like, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Like when he was with Serafina and he was like, I can really tell that you are holding back.
Yeah.
And she was
She's
like,
like, oh, no.
And
That was just about my mom.
and this where he's like, I don't want your brain and your anxiety to get in the way. And Latia's like, oh, I figured out how I can handle that.
Yeah, she's like, oh, actually, it's not. Just please don't tell me about your like sexcapades with other women, and we're good.
Always coming to a conclusion and then finding out that the conclusion has been dealt with. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So he gives her the fantasy suite card, and she is the first one who isn't just like, yes. She kind of looks at him like he's in trouble at the end. She's like widening her eyes.
She does a
almost
lot
sarcastically.
of eye acting. There's like a clip that was going around of like Diana Ross and how she like opens her eyes really wide when she sings. And I was like, Litia is in the Diana Ross school of eye acting.
Yes. And then they have this exchange. We have a clip.
I think that you're a very good guy, and I think you have great intentions, and I think you have only been so respectful to me, but it's hard for me right now because there are still people here. So I just have to make choices that will help me kind of protect my feelings and my peace. And so sex is just like not on the table for me.
Honestly, I respect that.
Yeah.
1000%.
Of course, here's that. So I wanted to
1000%.
clip this.
That would be insane if he was like, I don't respect that.
I don't respect that. I have no respect for that. I wanted to clip this because I don't even know if it captures it because so much of it is in the facial expressions. The way that she is talking to him on this date especially is like an intensifying sort of like almost baby talk, or like the way that you would talk to a small child.
Yeah, she talks to him like a child.
Yeah.
I've said it before, like something in their relationship is like truly Oedipal, or like some kind of something that she talks in baby voice, and you know,
she like both is baby but also is mommy.
Yes.
Well, but I think it is that thing that like can happen when you're talking to small kids and that we sort of expect. I wonder if it's partly cultural, because I think that in a lot of like fundamentalist Christian faiths and in Mormonism, especially the more fundamentalist sects of Mormonism, which I don't think she belongs to one of those based on what she's doing going on the show, but like there is this emphasis on like girlishness and sweetness that often manifests in a sort of like baby talk demeanor. And I think part of that is this idea that like women and children belong in the same space and they speak in the same sort of register, and they are under the protection of like a big strong man. And so the way that you sometimes talk to a small child, I feel like sometimes, I remember in the Keep Sweet documentary about the LDS, the women talked like that all the time. But it's this sort of like, I'm trying to meet you at your level and be very like, I'm tilting up the pitch of my voice a little bit, and I'm not trying to upset you. I'm using a very calm cadence. It's how you might talk to a small child to seem like you are less scary and like more at their level. And that's how she talks like all this.
Yeah. And it is notable that she's going into that register when she is like setting this boundary that she is clearly worried might disrupt the flow of their relationship.
Yeah, it definitely feels almost like she's like the stereotype of like a gentle parenting correction of just like, sex is very special. It's very important. So we don't do it all the time. We do it. It's a sometimes activity. Like it really feels like the stereotype of that. Like
it's like
parenting voice.
You want to have sex. Yes, we love sex, but we're not going to have sex right now.
Yeah,
like maybe we can have sex after we clean up all the toys from the floor.
Yeah.
The toys being the other women.
The other women.
Which again, it's like I think he's the way he's sort of like, this is mature. She's mature. And it's like, No, you're saying mature in the way that you do like a Pornhub pull down. You mean MILF. Like that's what like this isn't a more mature way to look at relationships. It's not a less mature way to look at relationships. It just is a very maternal way to speak to you.
Yeah.
And you like that, you respect
You like
it.
it,
And he's like, it's again that thing of like, what are her values on this? What does she believe about sex in a relationship?
Yeah.
And I had my family over the other day, or the day before, and my mom was like, what do you think's gonna happen? And then my mom goes, do we think she's a virgin? Like that would have come up, right?
Yeah,
I
you would
don't
think
think
it would
she
come
is.
up.
And I don't think she is, but it is sort of a thing where like from none of anyone's conversations has there been like, what does sex mean to you? What does sex
Right,
mean in a
right.
relationship? And he talks about like it can be the foundation of a relationship, but it's not the foundation of a relationship, and we have a different foundation. And it's like, how does sex
Right.
and
How
your
do you
physical
actually
connection-
feel about sex?
He seems very much to feel like sex is not like really relevant to a relationship. Like it doesn't seem, as you said, like there's no sexual like tension with.
or
any
is there
of the
just like a
women.
discomfort that he feels about?
And I do think that he has this like familial type relationship with each of these women that is different. Like with Litia, it's like he's the child of the mommy. With Juliana, he's like stepping into the father role.
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
the patriarch. And with Zoe, I honestly think there are just so many similarities with his sister, and he has like a sibling like a beautiful statuesque model, and like they have similar childhoods. They were raised by very like in similar setting. Like they really relate as siblings, and so each of these women
Yeah,
has
that's
more of
real.
a familial relationship
Yeah.
in the way he relates to them than they have like a
I
romantic or
also
sexual
like
one.
Yeah.
my spidey sense is tingling. Grant gives me a little bit of like reformed fuckboy, and that like I feel
Okay.
like like maybe it's just like professional basketball player turned turned finance bro, and like some of these outfits I'm like, sir, that is a man that was in them streets.
Yeah.
Like who are you this trendy for? You're not trendy just for yourself. And so I think I think it also is like almost like a reaction formation of like, I can't lead with this. I shouldn't lead with this.
Mm.
If I'm looking for a marriage, if I'm looking for a wife, kids, a family, like it gives the vibe of like, I've done that before.
Huh.
I need to do something different.
Something
This is
different.
purely
Interesting.
just
See,
like gut.
I think I read
vibes.
it as part of
But-
like the sort of he does strike me as like such a product of like TikTok hustle culture,
Mhm.
which I think a lot of young people who are in that culture now are like afraid of sex, and like they don't know how to connect because of the way that like their social spaces have been constructed and the way that they've been channeled into social media, and like optimizing and all these things that are kind of anathema to like real human connection, that I kind of like read it that way. Like he's just kind of like, I'm gonna like knock off all these checklist points, but like, do I really know how to like connect in that raw way? That's not coming
The
through.
fact that he said to Litia very early, "You look like nobody ever told you no. You so fine."
that was
it's
that
like
was a moment.
you've used a line. Like he's a guy that's used lines, and I
Yeah.
think in his mind, a relationship that is mature, that is on a strong foundation, doesn't start with sex.
Right.
Yeah.
He hasn't really, it seems like he hasn't maybe found a way to bridge that gap, or
Yes.
like where it's like you don't actually have to divide women into Madonnas and whores.
Yeah.
You can like have a relationship with a woman who is sexual, but also someone that you can, build the kind of future that you both want
I don't
with.
think anybody, like in any of the fantasy suites, he talks about sex, physical connection, his physical intimacy with anyone. Like I think like I get the gut of just like, yeah, half Dominican basketball player who like is a finance bro, like who had these lines like early in the season. Like I think in his, like, it's that I said it in one of my recaps of just like his light is on. It is time for him to get married. And when you get married, sex is not the thing you lead with. And
Miranda Hobbs always knows.
Yes. And
She
so
knows.
it feels a bit like he's making for a woman to say, I don't want to have sex. In his mind, he's like, this must be good. This much, I should follow this. This is
Which
maturity.
is essentially what he says. He says, like, sex is so important and special, but it's not the foundation. And he says, the maturity you bring is big. I like the grant. I like the ground that you stand on. And then he
She
tells
should
her,
stand on a grant.
Yeah.
it would be fun for everyone. And then he tells her that he could see her as his wife because he does love her.
This is the first I love you of the season.
Wild.
It is from the lead to a contestant, but also specifically right after she was like, I don't know about the
Rejection.
fantasy suite, and I'm definitely not having sex with you.
Yeah.
So what's going on here, buddy? Trying to lock this shit down or something?
And I don't know that it's conscious, but it does feel a little bit like he's like, oh no, she's backing away. I don't want her to.
Yeah.
I can't get this validation from her of that we would be intimate.
Right.
So I have to get some other reassurance or validation.
And I have to give it. I know I'm going to have to give it first.
Yeah.
To get it.
So
yeah.
it just feels like, I don't think he didn't mean it, but I do think as we see the next morning, like this was probably not wise because he
No.
doesn't have the conviction that it is Litia at the end.
No. And she beams. She seems
I mean, of
to
course.
understand that this
Yeah.
clearly puts her ahead of the pack,
As you would.
as you would.
Yeah.
And-
hard I love you. Like, ooh, she's picking out China. She's picking out, the
I mean,
wedding
and I would be
monogram.
too. I would too.
Yeah.
Like,
And this is like such a classic like rules girl triumph of like, I said no to sex and he was like, you're the one I love.
I'm telling you. Like,
And so she tells him that she loves him and Grant is thrilled. He's like, we love each other, so we'll be able to work through whatever obstacles stand in our way. Again, Grant has like just so much to learn about
thought
relationships.
terminating cliches
Yeah.
about love.
buddy.
But
That's
what
the
if
theme of the season.
something bad happens? Well, we'll be able to work through whatever obstacles.
Because we love each other. If you love each other, it fixes you, and also you can work through any obstacles.
right.
So she that now agrees to the fantasy suite time, and they head in to like make out. And Grant is feeling really high on things with Litia. He's like, I understand that she wants to be fully chosen before intimacy, but to me, I think she's a once in a lifetime woman. It feels like we're supposed to be together.
Ooh, buddy.
And then the next morning, things seem great. They both seem very happy.
He brings
But
her breakfast
Grant-
in bed, right?
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you're so good at making breakfast. Because obviously it's from the hotel. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very sweet,
Yeah.
it's a very sweet interaction.
Of
the
course,
next
like
morning.
Litia and Juliana, we see in bed, and
Right.
Zoe, we see in her
on the
crisp
beach in
button
business
down on the
casual.
beach.
Yes.
But it is notable that Grant seems to be suddenly, now that he has also gotten the affirmation from Litia, he's like, wait, maybe I gave a little too much affirmation.
Yeah.
Or it's
We
just
have
sort
a
of,
clip.
I think he's thinking a few steps ahead, and he's like, oh,
He's like, oh
I
no,
gotta do a rose ceremony. I gotta have these people meet my family. We gotta.
He's like,
even
we're not
the playing
over.
field.
It's not
Yeah, it's
over.
not over.
I'm still really into Juliana.
Yeah.
So we have a clip of some of what he says.
Last night, I told Litia that I love her. This is only the second time I've ever said I love you to anybody. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I felt. That's how I feel about Litia. Come on now.
I'll look you up.
All right. She's somebody who I want to spend every day with, but I also feel, maybe I should have waited a little longer to look somebody in the eyes and say that and then see them light up. And then know in the back of your mind that like, oh, well, I have other people I feel that for. I don't know. I don't know how do I maneuver through this? Because I do love her, but I also am falling hard and if not very close to in love with somebody else. I never thought it would be possible to be in love with multiple women. So do I stop here? Do I pick Litia now? Or do I continue to pursue the other woman that I have really strong feelings for?
The way that he's trying to delineate, like, I love Litia, and then there's this woman that I'm like, it's like the same, I think, maybe, but not quite. Like, I'm also falling hard for her. If not in love, that I'm close to in love. That is so, like, in real life, you would never think this way about it.
Yeah.
I also thought it was notable that he said, that's how I felt. That's how I feel.
Yes.
I'm like, I think you're starting to wonder if maybe you don't fully feel that way. But in the moment,
I do
you
love
did.
her. I do.
I did.
In the moment,
I did.
he felt that he loved her, and he felt like he needed to say it to her. And now he's like, ooh.
Yeah. And then my pullout of that, since we all annotated something, mine was, he goes, that's the second time I've ever told somebody. Again, I was like, I would love to know so much about your relationship history.
Well, that's that very long relationship that he had,
that
right? It's the only thing that he's talked about.
But I was like, this is the second time you've ever told somebody that you love them. And now you're like, should I have done that? It's like, oh, nobody. Like, and that he's like, he's gonna have to manufacture to say it to Juliana, I think, to be able to justify the ending.
Right. He can't just say it to one of them.
Yeah, because this is not. The instance of I remember all the conversation online in Ben Higgins' season that he said I love you to Lauren B, and that producers were like, you can't just say it to one person as we go into Fantasy Suites or the final two, you need to say it to someone else. So he's then said I love you to JoJo to give us the I'm in love with multiple women, because that had never really happened kind of before.
That was revolutionary.
That was revolution. And so it sort of feels like Grant is doing that to himself, being like, I have to be in love with the other person that I want to keep around. Otherwise, I have to pick Litia, right? Like, again, he's sort of like talking himself.
Well, he's like, I have trapped myself into picking Litia, and I did not intend to do that.
And it betrays a lack of understanding of what it means to be in love with someone, because he's like, I do love Litia, but maybe I would rather pick the other woman. Am I in love with her? I don't think so.
Which brings me
like
to my
like, you want to pick her.
My final observation for these shows, the lead has to have gone to at least hometowns. I'm sorry. Like, we get this kid, like, Grant was top 6, if top that 6 on Jen's season. It's like, he does not know how this part works.
This is the thing. It's really never worked when you pick a top 6 man. Like yes, we get it. It worked with Hannah.
I'll go forward and say with Kaity, Kaity Thurston, her
Kaity. Disaster.
Her season was chaos, and she had not made it to at least. I think
I think Hannah is the only one that it really worked with, because she just gave us such great TV, and you had such an arch villain in Luke P.
Right,
but like, I'm trying to think of the men that were top 6. That's like what? Clayton, disaster. Juan Pablo, disaster. Like, it's these men need to be like housebroken a little bit more. They need to be trained in the ways of the process.
You need to at least make it to hometowns, because then you have a sense of like, oh, this is
stakes.
This is serious, and you have some empathy on like what the other side is feeling, so that you're not
100% agree
making.
And
these
usually
kind of
the lead
decisions.
is like, the last person I said I love you to was the lead from the previous season.
Right.
He did not get even close to that point.
No.
So he's like, he's completely at sea. Meanwhile, the ladies are awaiting the rose ceremony. Zoe is nervous.
As she should be.
She should be. She's like, we had a great date, but I could be going home, and that would be tragic. But I think she's kind of made peace with it.
I think she
honest.
knows.
Yeah.
Latia's night gave her a lot of peace, because Grant said he loved her. And you don't say you love someone and then just send them home at the rose ceremony.
It would be bizarre.
It would be wild.
I mean, that's what happened. Like, that's what blew up Clayton's season.
Yeah.
Is that he told everyone he was in love with them, and it was like, but you also all need to leave.
Yeah. Juliana is feeling really scared, or this is like in the moment they clip to show us here, where she is very emotional, and she seems the most like she is getting like broken down by the process. Like, we're reaching this point where, like, I think Litia has found a way to compartmentalize. Zoe is not that invested. And Juliana is like white knuckling it when she's with Grant. And when she's not, she's like, I'm a mess.
Well, they did the thing to her, which is like give her the first
Yeah.
one-on-one. So she is the one who's like waited for like the better part of a week for this rose ceremony.
She says it would be devastating to know that he chose to love someone else more than he chose to love me. Love is a choice. And
Yeah,
he chose to give that love to someone else. So it's time for the rose ceremony. Grant is in like a dark mauve suit or something.
Mauve
sockless
linen
loafers.
suit.
Yeah. It had like a crop, like it was an ankle
Did
length.
you guys also notice that like his pants don't look like they fit properly because he just keeps tugging them up by the belt the whole time? He looks very uncomfortable.
I don't think that they budgeted enough to dress Grant. He's a very tall man.
Right. You need to get that stuff tailored.
I know. I was like, the tailoring has been off for the suits. He's been in a lot of great knits.
I wonder,
but the suits have been off.
I wonder with the pants if they're buying to fit his hips and then not taking in the waist.
And then they're too big because they keep falling down and he's just literally grabbing at his crotch the whole time.
I remember like my brother, there's like my older brother, there's like a certain cut of suit he just like can't buy because it does not sit right over his butt because he works out all the time. So he's just like, there's just whole racks of suits I just can't even try on.
Grant should talk to him and get some pointers.
Honestly, I think they would really get along. They both play basketball. They both like sports. I think there could be something there.
And the gym seems like they'd have a lot to talk about.
Grant is scared because there's a proposal next week. And honestly, he still barely knows these women. He's like 3 women, 2 roses, 1 Grant, and a whole lot of thoughts going in my head.
I was like, where are you going to land that plane?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4 roses line up at the door. I feel like Grant is like genuinely how like this just happened so quickly and now I'm supposed to propose next week. Like this is
and you're
crazy.
like, you know what? It is unhinged. You're actually correct about this.
This is the one time we're on board, buddy.
Yeah.
And he like talks with Jesse and Grant is like, oh, the pressure to make the right choice is so hard, but I want to be in love. And so I'm going to choose someone that I love and they love me. And it's mutual.
And
great
Jesse,
strategy.
And isn't Jesse like, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself right now? It's like,
yeah, you're putting it on yourself.
You think?
This is nuts.
Jesse asked Grant if his wife is here. And Grant is like, I feel like she is here.
But I don't know who it is.
Somewhere hiding in the bushes.
Sounds like his wife has like passed away. He's like, I do feel her presence.
I feel her in the ether.
Or it's almost like he's on a season of The Traitors and one of the women is his wife.
Yeah. He's like, I just got to figure it out.
Like, okay, who was in the trophy room when that murder happened? Like he's like, it's one of them. And
he's like,
I'm doing the math. I think there's still one more wife left in this game.
A wife could have recruited another wife, and we still have.
And he's like, "Well, luckily, I know one faithful is definitely here to eliminate, and that is Zoe." So, the
time
to go.
Are waiting. Zoe's in white, Juliana's in red, and Latia's in a sort of filmy pastel rainbow dress with little bundles of flowers.
Juliana is so sunburned.
I know. I was like, what a week to wear red.
I was like, you can take the Italian out of Boston, but
no, and she's even wearing her like red Van Cleef necklace, and I'm just like, the red it's really drawing attention to the fact that you're severely sunburned.
She put on oil and went on the beach is what she did.
She had a lot of time to kill after her one-on-one. I get it.
Grant tells the women that his mind has been all over the place and it's the most emotionally stressed he's been, that he has to send one of them home.
Don't want to hear that.
I know,
As
like, great. The roses go to Litia and Juliana, and Zoe doesn't even like flutter an eyelash. She's like,
she does have one single tear, like falling down her cheek.
She seems stoic.
She knows. She knows.
She's
they
not
all
gonna,
know.
And also, I don't think she's someone who would like want to cry on TV like that.
No, you can tell she's like trying not to, which is why you just see that one tear that she has not even bothered to wipe away.
Grant
They
walks
walk
her
out.
and they
and-
sit on the bench of feelings. And she seems very calm and resigned, and she has a speech so that he barely has to say anything. He's
This
basically just
annoyed
like,
me.
he's like, this is very hard for me.
He's like,
and
this
I
is so hard.
apologize.
I'm
I
so
did
sorry.
like
And then
this.
I was so mad that she said the whole thing. And then he was just like, okay, yep. Think we about wrapped it up. She's like, I know you've had a lot of tough choices. I'm so grateful we got this time together. We both put a lot into it. It's always sad to see something come to an end, but you're such a kind, empathetic man. That's hard to come by. And I'm so genuinely excited for you to find the right person. And Grant does not give any of that back. It's like, no, Grant. She said it. Now it's your turn to be like, you're incredible. Whoever gets to be with you is going to like be so lucky. I'm so grateful that we got to build this connection. And I'm sorry that we couldn't get there. Like, give her something.
This made me really, I just was like, nothing, like not even a like.
But honestly,
I
he
think
barely
he
gave
says-
anything to Dina either.
I think
like
he
he doesn't
says-
know how to do it.
I think he says, thank you. Should I walk you out?
Yeah, that's it. No,
In
nothing.
response to all of that. And what he said before that was, this was hard for me. I apologize.
I
Like,
just like,
Come
buddy.
on, buddy.
This was
Get it
Even,
together.
even neither of them are like, I'm falling for you, whatever. But it's still just like, just say one nice thing about her.
Well, that's
or
the thing.
say
You
one
spent
nice
time with
thing.
her.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a fool because I kept being like, oh, he's saying they have plenty of time, but he's going to dump her by saying they didn't have enough time.
He said
but
nothing.
he doesn't
didn't
because he
dump her by
doesn't say
saying
anything.
Or even like, it's a move I don't like, but just be like, other people were further along. Like, just
Which
even-
is just
Right.
another way of saying like,
we didn't have enough
you
time.
didn't-
We didn't have enough time.
Right.
Just say something.
Something.
It was-
Say
or-
something. Say literally anything specific about the
Yeah.
connection that you had or the time that you spent. Like anything.
We'll
all of the
always
qualities
have
that I said I
basketball.
saw in you, that was real. Like, I admire so much about you, but I just don't know that we are right for each other.
Right.
He's just like,
there are just a
"Thanks,
lot of
thanks for
things
your
he could have
time."
said. And instead he
Yeah.
says nothing. That was so hard for me. I hated
Yeah,
it.
disappointing. In the SUV, Zoe dabs away tears, but she stays pretty stoic. She's like, it's been hard to find love in my life. The tough exterior is obviously built for a reason. Underneath it is just a small girl looking for love and people who care about her. I'm still deserving of romance, and the right man will see that and give me all the amazing things, and I'll do the same for him.
Yeah, this is again, she's sort of like, I'll be deserving when I have love. Like it was just sort of
Yeah.
like, no,
I
you've got it all.
Like,
you're
you're already deserving.
You're really cool.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the right man will see that and give her all the amazing things. So with that, Fantasy Suites is over. With almost 5 minutes left in the episode, they couldn't even fill the 2 hours. With
We have to
Fantasy
just go
Suites.
This, I
straight
was
into
like-
the next
Yeah.
episode.
I was like,
basically.
did my DVR record something it shouldn't? I was like, what is this?
No, they're
Remember
like, we
how
gotta
they
fill
used to
time.
they used to always run out of room for stuff in the episodes, and then the rose ceremony would start the next week. They're going the other direction there now.
They're like, we're getting the beginning of the finale in.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet Grant's family.
Yeah, so the next morning he's reflecting on how conflicted he feels. The rose ceremony was difficult. He's feeling the pressure and he's torn. So he's going to see his family as we get sort of the finale process underway. His mom comes toward him with open arms and calls, "My son, I love you, son."
See,
Maybe
I
this
was
is
just
the
so
mom in me.
distracted.
The mom in me is just like, does she know about all the shit he's been saying on camera?
Yeah.
I love my mom, but she was the worst.
Yeah. She was always trying to make sure there was food on the table and a roof over my head.
It just wasn't really what I needed. So his dad and sister are also there, and it seems like everyone's on good terms, and his mom and dad are like sitting next to each other. And in the moment, he says that this journey is bringing his family together.
Well, he also said it has maybe been 7 or 8 years since his family all was together.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that comment of this is bringing us all together, I was like, oh,
No, literally.
this
Yeah.
is it. I was like, please don't think a marriage or your relationship is gonna like mend something in your parents. Like it just, again, it's just sort of like, oh, buddy, There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff happening that we don't have time to unpack because they didn't give you enough episodes.
Yeah.
I know.
His dad tells him they're there to support him and he shouldn't feel pressured. And Grant is like, there is pressure because there's a deadline and I have to complete my task of finding my
he's
wife.
Honestly, correct. There is pressure.
This is the walls are closing
Closing
in.
in.
on
Closing
this
in.
one. Yeah.
If you could like summarize like the way that he seems all the time at this point, it's like pulling his collar away from his neck, just like gasping for air. His mom asks if he's getting closer to getting there with one girl, and he says he's trying to figure that out. When he's with one, he feels a certain way. When he's away from them, he feels torn. Each relationship has a different dynamic.
His family is clearly like very concerned. They're like, "Oh my god, he really doesn't know."
Yeah, they're like, you look terrible. Like, you look stressed, my guy.
Well, and then in the moment, he's like, I come across as really cool and calm, but inside I'm freaking out. And I'm like, no, Grant, you're not coming across as cool and calm. Everyone can tell.
Yeah.
He says, I've never been this indecisive in my life, so stay tuned for my demise. Ooh, good things coming next week. We get a little preview. Litia and Juliana are both going to meet his family. Grant, shockingly, sees both of them as a wife, his wife, who can say, Litia's like, you're enough. Juliana makes him feel special. Grant has a ring and he has no idea who he's going to give it to. And he's not going to know until the cars are literally pulling up.
And his mom is also like, I'm
Walk
sorry.
away,
What's
son.
happening?
Walk
What are you
away.
doing?
Walk away,
This is bad.
son.
This is bad. And this is not great. Also, I wrote in all caps in my notes, both women look phenomenal. They went full rhinestone for both of their dresses.
I loved it. I know. I'm actually excited to
So
talk about the
excited
fashion
to
because
see
it's
them.
more adventurous than normal, and I love it. Allie, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such a delight.
Oh,
Can you
so good to be back.
tell all the people where they can find you and all of your amazing work?
You can read my recaps of The Bachelor on vulture.com. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at WTFlanksteak. And as always, watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver Sunday nights on HBO or Max.
Woo.
Wherever you get your Last Week Tonight.
Yes.
And now it's time for Love to See It, Hate to See It. Let's start with Hate to See It. Personally, I hate to see how goddamn boring this season is. Everyone involved seems lovely. This is no hate. But this season is just a fucking snooze fest.
Yeah, I struggled to concentrate on this episode, to be honest. I hated to see the fact that Zoe got a date that involved like basically no talking, and like I feel like I needed talking. I needed it just for interest, and
Yes.
I needed it to see literally anything progress from this relationship, and I feel a bit cheated.
And on that note, also hated to see just the way that the fact that like Zoe was so far behind the other two relationships stripped the episode of even an ounce of narrative tension.
Yeah, big time. And I really hated to see the way that it really seems like there's still like a struggle to like connect like with real intimacy between Grant and all of these women, that we're still seeing these kind of generic ways of thinking and talking about each other. It's like kind of, I think, part of what is so boring about the season. And it also just feels like, how can they possibly be ready to make any sort of commitment to each other if they're still thinking of each other in these like cardboard cutout ways?
Yeah. And that connects to the fact that I hate to see that Grant clearly looks at women in these categories. A wife is an object, a mother is an object, and I think he is still sometimes struggling to bridge the gap between those categories and like real women. Human women. So Claire, what do we love to see?
I do love to see that Grant is feeling really good about his top two women, and that they seem to be feeling really good about him. I always love, despite the fact that they needed a lot more time together. I do think we're going to see more investment in the next episode and more heartbreak.
I agree. And I also think that there is a very real chance that whoever Grant picked, that they have really furthered their relationship in the months that they've had since filming. So we hope to see that. Also, love to see Daisy, Rachel, and Kaity. I was like, you're reminding me of some fun times I used to have. Thank you. So lovely to see all of you ladies.
I love to see Litia and Juliana like holding hands at the end of the rose ceremony. Like they were perhaps the ones choosing each other.
I know.
What a beautiful moment of sisterhood. And the way they said goodbye to Zoe was also very sweet. And it's nice that we ended up with the final three who have been very mutually supportive.
And that brings us to our drama rating out of 10 Yes Drama Llamas. Somehow, there is essentially no drama on this episode.
Like a 2?
Like a 2. I mean, it's tepid. The drama is so tepid. I think actually the finale might end up being one of our top drama episodes. Just because of Grant's terror at choosing.
Yeah, he's managed to engineer it such that like no one will be really upset to be sent home until the finale.
Yeah.
And so that's coming like a freight train. He can't dodge it forever.
And on that note, that is it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. This show is produced by us, Claire Fallon, and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by Tori Piskin. Our theme music is by Tamar Habib, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, spread the word to all of your friends about Love to See It.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter, Rich Text, on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at EmmaLadyRose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Special thanks to the team at Odyssey, Eric Donnelly, Aaron Constantino, Kate Rose, Maura Curran, Melissa Wester, Carly Snyder, and Hillary Shoup.
We'll be back with Grant's finale next week.